Thanks for the opportunity to reply, and thanks for reaching out. So, spiritual narcissism. You are correct in that it leads back to my dad, your dad, and probably many of your friends, many of my friends. You may have considered yourself a pastor at one time or another. Maybe you still do. The point of this statement was to make clear that the spiritual position of the Christian is communistic, in that the Christian thinks that if every person on the planet was a Christian, then the world would be a better place. And the communist thinks the same thing. If every person would just simply be a communist, then the world would be a better place. And it makes total and complete practical sense to these individuals, and they would never in a million years think that they are being extreme, a fanatic, a self-proclaimed authority, and some type of spiritual emphasis, final say when it comes to the spiritual world. And though there may be different opinions about the exact, quote unquote, size of God, when or if the universe was created by this God, and so on and so forth, at the end of the day, all those aspects that are the outside look, but they are not the core value. And it's in the core value that there's narcissism, because the Christian knows, the pastor knows, the priest knows that they're right. They know they have the one true message. They know they have the one true God. They know they have the one true book, and so on and so forth. And they know you're a sinner. They know you're a sinner. And so this person is unwilling to change their position. They're unwilling to shift emphasis. The emphasis is that man is fallen, man is to be saved, and that the saved ones go to heaven. And that is the basic theology. And if you do not align yourself to that, then you're wrong and you're going to go to hell. The communist says no one should have guns. The only people that should have guns are us, the authorities. You really aren't qualified to vote because you don't understand the importance of this communistic movement, and that we have to have the correct leaders in place in order to, quote unquote, save the world. And so you must have this communistic message and integrate that into your life, or we're going to imprison you. You're going to go to prison the rest of your life. You're going to be in a labor camp in hell, right here on earth. And it is the exact same mindset. It is the exact same position. That it's a elitist, authoritarian, kingly position, and no one can question it. You must obey. The communist says the same thing. And so when you become very practical, pragmatic, and just very raw without any emotional tying into it, it becomes painfully obvious that it's an elitist, narcissistic position. I one time asked my father, Dad, what's a cult? And he said, well, Chuck, a cult is a group of people that believe they have the right book, believe they have the right and exclusive God, and they believe that everyone in their cult is saved. And he kind of caught himself right at the end there, and I looked right at him and I said, well, Dad, that's exactly what Christians say. And he says, oh, I know, but it's different because we have the truth. We have the book of God. We have the truth. They don't have the truth. And right there you see the fallibility. Right there you see the self-dismissal. You see all the reason go down the toilet. And this is the behavior of a narcissist. And so, yeah, it's not nice to think about. It's not nice to hear or think that my dad is a narcissist spiritually, or your dad was a narcissist spiritually. or any of your friends that consider themselves pastors and authorities regarding the Bible. You know, it's just, no matter which way you cut it, these are all narcissists. They're all fanatics. They're all exceptionalists. They're all absolutists. In other words, and you're probably not going to hear this, but they are anti-humane. They are anti-human positions. And this is, I'm telling you, this is the crisis. I mean, it's funny, but Christians are wondering, what's the big crisis? What's the big thing coming? The big crisis and the big thing coming is finding that out. That's the crisis. And because we've got, and I'm going to mention this Saturday, but because we've got this history on this planet of catastrophe after catastrophe, the automatic assumption for the Great Awakening is we're having another geophysical catastrophe. And that's a massive assumption. And to assume that this Great Awakening is just simply a revivifying, a recapitulating of the old way, I mean, that's not a great awakening. That's like saying that this big thing is going to happen, and what's going to happen is the entire world's going to become Christians. That's the big thing. I'm sorry, but that's not a great awakening. That's just a giant cult. Another giant cult. And what is the world filled with? Cultists. You have governmental cultists. You have medical cultists. You have religious cultists. Everyone is basically a cult member without even realizing that they're in a cult, without even realizing they're a fanatic. And in the case of my dad, your dad, and every pastor, not even realizing that they're a narcissist. Pure, cut and dry. No argument possible. And I've just explained it to you so clearly that no one in their right mind, in a reasoning mind, in a practical mind, could come to any other conclusion. Because this is how we define this world. And if you're going to define this world by the rules and regulations of religion, there you have it. If you're not going to define this world by those types of rigor, then you'll be able to escape. You'll be able to see it's a cult, you'll be able to see it's narcissism, and you'll be able to see it's anti-humane. And at that point, if you're human, if you have compassion, if you have regard for others, you will run from the religious position. Run. How do you say that you're a humanist and that you have humane values if you don't think like me, believe like me, do like me, see like me, you're wrong and you're going to hell? Narcissist. You know, plain as day. I hope that answers your question, love. Thanks for the reaching out. Thanks for the email. All right, see you. Bye. I felt it would be easier if I would just answer you verbally than to try to write all of this down. Okay, so one of the things I try and do on my channel is to widen the perspective of people and to help them see a world larger than the one that they've been programmed with. Now, all of us, when we grow up, are programmed by our parents, and I'm not saying it's a nefarious thing or a bad thing, but our parents only know the world that they know. And since parents, most parents love their kids, they want to bring their world that they understand to their children. And so, because that's the only world that they understand, that's the only world that they can bring. Okay, and so you spend all of your childhood, youth, and then starting to split in high school after puberty, because the chemicals change in the human body after puberty. The deeper thinking, the reasoning, the questioning begins to occur. This is normal biological function. And so at that point, there's a moment when either the child is going to integrate all that they have learned and just take that on throughout their adulthood, or if they're going to abandon the world that was programmed into them by their parents and do their own thing and figure it out for themselves. So what's happening right now in the Great Awakening is everyone is having to figure it out for themselves, because they're finding out that every single story that all of us grew up in, whether it's atheistic or theistic, are all lies and cons. So trying to understand the world in a new way, you don't take the old lies and cons and simply reshape them into the worldview that you're trying to form. You've got to come up with new concepts. You've got to come up with a totally different way of taking apart the puzzle, because the way you were taught to take apart the puzzle, namely nature, namely life, namely yourself, the way you were taught to take apart the puzzle is the way that you were trained by your parents. And so the next question then is, well, why should I abandon the tutelage of my parents? Or why should I abandon the monotheistic world that I'm familiar with, that I've had spiritual experiences in? Why should I leave that? Okay. The reason why you want to leave that is because all the Abrahamic religions give themselves away because of their psychology. Judaism, Islam, and Christianity are all communistic spiritual belief systems. For instance, the Christian believes, the Islamic believes, the Jew believes that if everyone were simply either of their nationality or of their religious belief, Islamic, Christian, Jew, whatever, then the world would be a better place. So if you're in Islam and everyone was Islam, the world will be a better place to the Islamic. To the Christian, if everyone was a Christian, the world will be a better place. And it's interesting because the communist thinks the same thing. If everyone was a communist, the world would be a better place. That's what the communist thinks. That's why they're trying to get everyone to adhere to communism. And the reason why they both are like that, they all are like that, is because they're cults. They're cults. They're belief systems, and you have to believe them, or you're going to go to prison forever if you're a communist or not a communist, or you're going to go to hell forever if you're not a Christian. It's the same conclusion, hell. And they're like that because they're cults. So when you begin to reason with psychology and understanding that these are inhumane positions, well then, what more proof do you need? It gives the fallacy of it gives itself away right on the front end when you just look at its basic tenets, its basic principles, its basic edicts. And any person that says, if you don't think like me, believe like me, see like me, on and on and on it goes. If a person believes like that, they are a fanaticist, an extremist, a communist. And you know, right? There's no more proof that you need. And if you need more proof, just follow that psychology and see where it takes you. What does it do to you and others when you believe that everybody else is going to hell but you and all your friends that believe like you? Well, that destroys relationships. That separates people. What is a person who thinks that they're a sinner? They're going to act and behave like a sinner because that's what they believe about themselves. And the Bible insists that everyone believes that about themselves. Well, if I think I'm a sinner and I believe I'm prone to wander, well, then that's exactly the way I'm going to behave. Well, that's not a good psychology. You know, and it's any path you take down these religious belief systems, it doesn't matter the path. They all lead to the same conclusion. They're a cult. They're a belief system. They're inhumane. They're separative, alienating, you see? And therefore they are disqualified because they're not humane. And so one has to then find a spirituality that's humane. And really, that's what this whole Great Awakening is about. It isn't about great cataclysmic upheaval on the earth, it's about great cataclysmic upheaval of the human psyche, of human consciousness, and everyone finding out that they've been lied to their entire life. And everyone then having to reform their ontology, the way they take apart the world. You see? Okay, well, I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for the inquiry. Okay, see ya. Bye-bye.
face is cracked from smiling, all the fears that she's been hiding. And it seems that pretty soon everybody's gonna know.
We Hey, y'all. I think we're here. I think we're live. I think we're good. I hope you enjoyed that. That was some cool fireworks. I'm a firework fanatic. And so I was really pleased when I found that. I thought it would be a nice way to start today. And to get things rolling, let's go to comments and let's see who is here. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. Hi, Philip. Good to see you. Hi, Vortex. Hi, Katie Cat. Glad you like that. Hello, Lazy Gringo. Hi, Lancelot. Thank you so much. Survive and thrive. I know all y'all. Tao Rose. Hello. Thank you so much. Classical music rock is awesome. Thank you so much. Let's see if you guys got any questions. How have y'all been this week? How are y'all doing? I've got some updates about Atlas we're going to be looking at. We're going to try to take a very balanced view of that. And then I've also got that awesome interview that we started last week. And today it's going to get even more intense. I'm really excited about that. Hi, King. Welcome. Hi, Cruz. Hi, Esoteric. It's okay, love. You haven't missed much. You only missed some music. And I read a couple of letters. I probably should comment on that. So this week I got a couple of letters. And basically they were, one letter was from an old friend from way back in the day. I actually went to elementary school with this person. And their father was a pastor, and they were a bit taken off guard or confused when I equated the pastor, the priest, the eccentric to fanaticism and communism. And the reason why I did that was because these are, the Abrahamic religions are exclusive belief systems. They're sister religions. But they all are opposed to one another. In other words, each one thinks that they're right. And I talked about this in my video. I don't need to get into it. But they were a bit troubled about that I called basically my father a spiritual narcissist. And I don't mean to be saying that in a degrading way. I'm saying it in a very matter-of-fact way. It's like if you don't like blonde hair and a person has blonde hair, you know, it doesn't mean you don't like the person. It just means you don't like blonde hair. And so it's just an opinion in regards to the level that Christianity and Islam and Judaism bring to the individual. And we've talked extensively about that, but I wanted to clarify that. And to also render that, and this is something I want to bring in as we start to talk about Atlas, and I'll get to comments here. But I'm wanting to try and seed an idea in you guys. And I don't know how it's going to sit with you. But the more investigating I do, and what I'm going to be uncovering here with the interview is going to show this more, but the more investigating I do, I'm beginning to get the idea that the Great Awakening is not about the world being destroyed and going through yet another cataclysm. But it's actually, the Great Awakening is a cataclysm of the mind. It's a complete destruction of the old mind, and it falls right into what I'm talking about tonight with Rosicrucianism, and the beginning of a new mind. And that was another thing I wanted to address in those letters, and that I'm trying to spread this idea of positivity, and that this is a great moment for us in human history, and that we're all going to transcend, at least those who are ready will. And it's different than in the past because, yes, we've had many cataclysms on this earth, but it's going to be different now because of human consciousness. Now, you remember the two-slit test where human consciousness can change electrons from a wave to a particle. Well, don't you think in that same magical universe, the human consciousness, the human collective can change what was meant to be a terrible, evil thing and turn it into a wondrous, beautiful thing? Don't you think that we have equal power, and therefore why it's so important to not have a doom and gloom perspective right now, and to not be just assuming that we're going to a cataclysm and just assuming that the same thing that's happened year after year after year, or every 1,000 years, 10,000 years, whatever the cycle is, that it's different now, that the human collective of unconscious has now become so conscious, so aware, that literally from our attention, our awareness, we are changing the course of the common situation here on this planet. That enough of us have awoken, that the human collective has become so conscious that the world cannot go back into desuetude. And this is an idea I want to seed in you guys. And the whole point in all that you're seeing in media and all that you're seeing with all the lies that continue to spread about is to continue to keep the fear state so we continue to suppress the masses, we meaning the controllers. We keep everybody in the fear state and we keep resisting and keep this collective community from transcending. And that philosophy I just shared with you falls right in line with the idea I've been sharing with you for a long time. And that is that we instigate the Great Awakening. We do. It's sort of like the gasoline tank is there, but you got to put it in the car and you got to start the engine and you got to give it gas to make it go. And the human collective is the same way. And we have this pure fuel, this pure ethanol, this pure energy that we simply have been suppressed and haven't recognized. And so we haven't hit the throttle, you know? And a lot of folks are still underneath the doom and gloom kind of idea. Like they really think the cataclysm is coming and that most of us are going to die. And I'm not flat denying that. I'm saying, why don't we take on a different idea, a different approach? And that is one of celebration and hope to change the course. You know, because we're the creators, aren't we? Are we not? And what kind of world are we creating as the quote unquote awakened if our awakening factor has an existential point of doom? Just how awakened is that society? Because I think the Great Awakening is an enormous change. That's the mentality I'm taking on. Okay, let's see what you guys are doing in chat. Hi, Cat Kiss. Yeah, exactly. That's what we're shooting for. Hi, Tyrone. Yeah, dude, absolutely. Heck yeah, England. Whoa. Thank you for being here. Is it like the morning there? It's probably the morning time there. This probably works out really nice for you guys on the other side of the world. That is unbelievable. Yeah, we are the change. We are the change. You're exactly right, Lancelot. We are the change. Yes, you're correctly. That falls in line with what I've been talking about, Tao. That falls in line. Shawshank Redemption has some good things to say about hope. It's a good movie. Yeah, exactly. This is our future. This is our future. Yeah, exactly. Hi, Vortex, DW. Hello. Here, let's see what Gretchen has to say. Hi, Gretchen. Welcome back, love. This is why the community is so important. We need to encourage one another to see light in all this. Thanks, Chuck. Glad to be here for all of it. Heck yeah, Ginger or Gretchen. Heck yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay. You guys are on a similar page. Yes, we do. Hi, Obi. Welcome. Glad you're here, buddy. Yeah, New Hampshire. Oh, and I have some things to share about the Northeast also. Yeah, absolutely. This is an interesting question. Hi, Eldana. Chuck, do you know about some apps that can convert music from 440 to healthier hertz? If you do, how can we know which one is best? You know what, love? That issue is a tuning issue. Like when you're going to play a song or play music, you tune your instrument. And so that's the baseline, so that everybody in the room all has the same pitch, all has the same tuning, right? So you're in key. And so when you say convert to 440, what you're talking about is the baseline tuning. So you would have to change the tuning of the I think it's middle C from A440 or it's A from A440 to A414 or A415, which is the old school tuning that resonates. So it's not just about converting the song like that. You actually have to change the tuning. The instrumentalists have to adjust. That's not just a computer fix. Yeah, Australia. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Hello, Pablo. Heck yeah. Love it. Dude, look, dude. British Columbia. Yes. Come on. Algeria. Come on, man. That is incredible. Folks, we are all over the world. This is absolutely nuts. Profound. Yes, he did, cat kiss. If you haven't seen The Shawshank Redemption, man, you gotta see that movie. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. Thank you, Asimi. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys very much. Thanks for being here, guys. Hello, Tucson, Arizona. Hello. So here we go. Shall we start this stuff? Shall we start in on the Atlas? Chuck, did you see Avi Loeb say that Atlas is the object that sent the wow? Yeah, that's what he's guessing. Or that's what he's suggesting. I just did a year in the prison they filmed in Shawshank Redemption. Are you serious? Holy smokes, man. I'm really sorry that you were in prison. That is rough. That's amazing, though, that you were in the same prison. I hope you're okay. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for being here. We're going to get into Atlas here in a sec. Here we are. We are the change. Yes, indeed. Okay, well, okay. Hi, Obi. Okay, so air and water. Air is mind, Obi. Air is mind. It can change temperatures very quickly. Think about that. It's tougher to change the temperature of water quickly. So air would reference the imagination. Air would reference the activity and energy of the mind. If you're talking about tarot, is what I'm assuming, or the ancient world forms: air, water, fire, and earth. And then water would be more along the lines of love and knowledge, wisdom. If you picture the card, the water bearer card, you'll notice in that card that she, the water bearer, is pouring water both into the water and onto the earth, which is the sharing of truth, which is the bringing about from the underworld, from the subconscious into the conscious mind, to bring about truth, to foster truth. And so air and water are distinct in sort of their metaphoric position in what they represent as far as living life is concerned. And so it's not about finding the exact definition, but finding, sort of like playing horseshoes, getting a pretty good idea of your central point. And so your central point with air is going to be mind, and your central point with water is the cups, is love, is compassion, is wisdom, this kind of a thing. And notice that air transitions very quickly. Notice that oxygen air is what burns your life as well as gives you life. And so air provides life in many ways, just as water is sustenance for our bodies. These are very deep and heavy metaphors that fill our ancient past. And it's a shame that most people don't know about it. And that's what the Great Awakening is for, is so that we all can find out about it to better understand ourselves and the world better. So here, Fortune, hello. I will repeat my comment respectfully. Thank you. Chuck, do you think we can meet on a platform like Zoom so we can meet each other? I'd love that. That's an interesting idea. I think doesn't X have one where like any unlimited can be there and we all can meet each other? That kind of idea. Fortune, what you need to understand, my friend, is that I am a one-man solo band here. And I don't have any assistants. I don't have any editors. I don't have any programmers. I don't have any computer helper or anything. I do everything. And so with all that I'm responsible for each week, and since most of what I do here is volunteer, and that's fine, but since a lot of what I do is volunteer and I'm not selling anything or anything like that, I can only give so much time to the platform because I have a life. I have to be able to live my life. And so I also have study all week that requires my attention as I develop the slides and the content that we're going to be exploring every Saturday. So it's extremely difficult, in other words, for me to make big changes like that. In addition, I have an enormous YouTube platform. I have over 60,000 subscribers, and I need to respect them and I need to present to them because they have subscribed to me. And so I have a responsibility there, and I don't want to alienate them at all. So it's an idea, and I want to pursue those things when and if, and I don't know if my stuff here will ever get larger or expand to the point where it actually can support me financially. But when and if we ever get to that place, then I'm going to hire a computer programmer, my friend, and I will have my own Substack, my own website. I will have all my own everything. And then I will then little by little bring everyone from these other platforms to my platform. And then I will be uncensored. And at that point, anything goes. And I won't have to withhold anything that I say or do, which I'm doing constantly on these evenings together. So it's a process. It's not as easy as just, hey, this week we're going to hop up onto Zoom and we're going to do it, man. I wish it were that easy, Fortune. I wish. It's just not. But thank you for the idea, and we definitely will continue to expand for sure. Yeah, Made in 440. You guys, if you guys have been watching my Rosicrucian videos, you would know that the Bach music, the Bach pilgrimage music from John Elliott Gardner that I've been playing for you guys from time to time, that's all tuned to 415. That's all tuned. It's the Baroque era. What you're looking for is the Baroque tuning. And in the Baroque era, before the classical era came, the tuning was lower. And it was right in the authentic space of your heart, of your chakras. And they took that from you. Thank you for the advice, Philip. Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Obi. Nice. Thank you. Love it, you guys. Knock them out. Yeah, right on. Okay. Obi has an interesting question. What's your question, Obi? Or did I answer it already? France. Hello, Laurent. Hey, France. Have you been to the Louvre lately, Laurent? You should go. That's my dream to go. Hello and love from France. Thank you for your work. You're welcome. Seems we have everything inside. Fascinating series, God Eaters. Thanks, friend. You're welcome, Laurent. You're welcome. And remember, that series is 5 videos long. So you have to go over to Rumble to finish. You have to finish it up. There's 3 more videos after the first 2 at Rumble you ought to check out. California's not boring. California's not boring. Wow, Ecuador. What's up, Chuck? Hello, Chase. Hello. You guys got any questions? You guys got any questions? I'm looking for all caps. I'm going through the comments. Don't worry, I haven't left you. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, King. Put the reminder or put your questions to me in caps. I'm going to be talking about that, Cat Kiss. I'm going to be talking. Yep, seems fishy. Exactly, Cat Kiss. I'm going to be talking about that. I've been collecting about Atlas. I'm going to show you guys some stuff here in a minute. Yes. Yes, it does, Tamara. You are exactly right at all scales. Hey, Painting Picture. Thanks for being here, buddy. Good interacting with you this week. Thank you, friend. Hello, good day. Hello, Australia. Heck yeah. Hi, Elliot. Big Chuck dropped the merch. I love it, Ovi. I would love it. I have ideas. I'm going to start talking and figuring something out for sure. Yeah. There's a lot of work in this, guys. Yeah, I know. Yeah, thanks, 9mm. I want to do it. I'm in the process of getting that done. I've got to find out the cost of embroidery. I've been getting the cost of snow caps and hoodies because I don't want to, charge too much. I want to charge right what the market normal is. And so, yes, I want to do that. I definitely want to do that. Okay. Yeah, that's a great idea, Survive and Thrive. Maybe so. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Heck yeah, dude. Formula, yes. I watch it all week. I watch the news all the time. I love Formula One, and I love the way it's going on right now. I really like it, but I'm not going to get caught up in Formula One because 99% of the people here have no idea what Formula One is. Okay. Oh, that's good news. I'm glad to hear it. Does Mark have that? I don't know. I haven't been to Mark's site in a while. I bet he does, though. Okay, Clueless, let's do it with that. So we're going to go and we're going to check it out. Look, had a great time with Scooter. Here we are. That was Jess. Now, let me tell you who these people are. It's pretty obvious on the left, and that's my wife there next to me in the green. And then that's Will. He is a French Canadian. He is Jessica's partner, and he is awesome. He is an awesome dude. He's a musician, and he's totally laid back. I love the guy. It's fantastic. And then, of course, that's little Jess there on the far right. She's so beautiful. And then it was a beautiful day. I caught some amazing pictures. It was absolutely fabulous. Here, look, I even got this here. Check it out. Hang on, where'd you go? Why is it not putting it up? Oh, sorry, hang on. Here's the view. How awesome is that? It was absolutely stunning. It was absolutely stunning. It was so beautiful. We had a lovely time, had an absolutely wonderful time. Here's another picture of us as a family. So sweet. Isn't my wife beautiful? And then here's a lovely shot here. It was awesome. Yeah, it was fantastic. We had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for asking. We had a wonderful time. And then look what happened this week. Look, guys, look what you're doing. Look at the work you're doing. Look at this. So check out the consistency of new subscribers, of total views, of minutes watched. Look what you guys are doing. How hot is this? This is awesome. Right? Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So let's look at Atlas. How many of you guys have been following Atlas? So what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Let's read a little bit here before we get going. 3i Atlas is offloading tremendous, extraordinary levels of outgassing, but has shown no deviation in course or speed. I'm going to explain that to you. Atlas is putting out a 5 times increase in brightness, which elicits effect with an object's course, trajectory, and speed. Now, this is something that you need to know. Where's something I can use as an example? Here, this will work. Okay. So let's say like this is 3i Atlas. Okay. Now, a typical meteor, when it's traveling through space like this, okay, does what's called outgassing. Okay. And what happens is in space, since it's such a difficult and challenging environment, what happens is that ions from the metals that compose the meteor outgas. And that means they go from a solid to a gas, like solid carbon dioxide goes from solid to gas. There's no water stage. And so because of the unique atmosphere of space, or lack thereof, metals, minerals, elements act differently than they do here on Earth underneath a atmosphere with pressure and temperature control and so forth. Okay, you don't have that in space. So as the meteor travels, now follow the logic on this. I'm not going to be conspiracy theory at all. As the meteor travels in space and it outgasses, it's like thrust. Think of a volcano erupting on a moon or the Earth. You get a small enough object that outgasses enough, it will act like a thruster. That outgassing will. And this is on a normal meteor. I'm not talking crazy science here. This is proven statistical, like normal science. And what happens is as the meteor travels, it changes trajectory slightly. It moves around a bit as it's shooting off gases from its body as it's getting closer and closer to the sun, and portions of it are melting from the radiation. So, okay. So that's what happens with a normal meteor. And what you need to know about Atlas is, look, it's putting out a 5-time increase in brightness, which elicits effect with an object's course, trajectory, and speed. So in other words, what it's saying here, it's saying that Atlas is putting out so much outgassing that it is glowing at 5 times the normal rate. In fact, and I'm going to get into this in the facts. In fact, there's not enough luminance, there's not enough energy and photons from the sun, follow this, for Atlas to be as bright as it is. And the only thing that could be making it bright is an internal warmth, an internal engine. Now, it could be that it's outgassing so much that the gases themselves are causing an abnormally increase in brightness. But it's still mathematically, even under that idea, It's not aligning to theoretical physics and science. It's not aligning to how a meteor typically travels through the cosmos. Additionally, it has at times has had a tail, and it at times has had no tail. Typically, a meteor, as it's traveling through the solar system, is struck by the cosmic wind that's coming out of the sun. And that wind is composed of photons, neutrinos, ions, plasma, and there's a mass, like a CME, a coronal mass ejection. There is mass that's coming out of the sun, and this strikes the comet. And so the tail, as it's outgassing, will throw off gas and dust as the sun is striking it. And so as it travels towards the sun, the tail stays away from the sun, so that as it orbits the sun like this, as it's orbiting around the sun, right? The tail is always facing away from the sun. I'll show you in the map here. Look here. Now there's Atlas coming up from the bottom, and you can see it's moving towards Mars, and then it's going to go by Venus, see? And then it's going to pass by Earth, and then it goes up to Jupiter. And I'm going to say a few things about this. Okay. So what is happening, though, which doesn't make any sense, and the scientists still cannot answer for this, and they have admitted that this has happened. But the tail on Atlas has at times faced the sun. And that breaks all theoretical thermodynamic rules. It should not be doing that. The tail moves away from the sun, away from the cosmic wind, the sun's wind. It should be moving away from that at all times. And as the comet, any comet, gets closer to the sun, typically it outgasses more and more because of the additional heat and radiation that's coming off the sun. You see, and what we're seeing with Atlas is that its tail has begun to point at times directly at the sun, which means, what does it mean? Is that a thruster? Is it sucking up energy? Is that causing a vortex to form on this thing? What? Why is it sucking energy? What would be pulling energy in? You see, here we keep going. That's just the beginning, folks. This is unprecedented. All objects, I forgot to tell you, all objects that outgas here, look. So what we notice now, I was going to mention this earlier, it's outgassing like I was talking about, and it's outgassing more than any comet that's come through the solar system. Here's the thing. It's outgassing more than we've ever seen. 5 times the rate, folks, but it's not moving. It's not changing course. We've had meteors in the past that have outgassed less than Atlas, and they have changed course just from the outgassing. Atlas is spitting out like crazy amounts of energy, and it is not changing course. It is not deviating. How? Even if it's like acting like a knuckleball, like it's coming out from all sides simultaneously at the same rate, which it isn't, but if it was, it would be kind of going like this. The darn thing is staying in a 1.5 square mile, circular mile from its course. In other words, it's not deviating more than 1.5 kilometers, which is that can't be happening, but it's happening. It's happening. Now look, here we go. Atlas increased 5 times in brightness in 0.9 astronomical units, 134 million kilometers or 83 million miles. A 1.5 times increase in brightness at Atlas speed and distance as entering the solar system would be normal. Sublimation, the cosmic process of solids transitioning into gas, results in coma. Reflected brightness of the object at 6.3 astronomical units from the sun, about 1 billion kilometers. Here it is. There is not enough energy from our sun to cause a 5 times increase in brightness as observed from Atlas. So you have to ask the question, why is it getting so bright? Why is it not outgassing iron? Nickel and iron in a supernova form at the same temperature and about the same time. In other words, you don't get one without the other. And this thing has no iron, which points to manufactured alloys. Last time I checked, Nature doesn't have specific alloys that it manufactures and extracts particles and elements from. That's something that we do as human beings. That's not something that naturally occurs in nature except in very extreme conditions. And this thing doesn't match that. A 5 times increase in brightness forces pressure physics into play, and Atlas has shown no effect from the substantially abnormal increases in coma and gassing. This makes no sense. Gassing causes slight course deviation, changes in speed and trajectory, like I just explained. We have observed this on every object that outgasses, that has passed through our solar system. Atlas shows no course, speed, or trajectory change, despite a 5 times brightness increase, which is the result of abnormally high gassing. None of this makes physics sense. In fact, 3i Atlas only deviates within a 1.5 mile or a kilometer sphere, which is simply bonkers consistency and points to other forces stabilizing the object. Atlas may be large enough to render near zero NGA, yet it pulsates. And that's another thing. Why is it pulsating? You get a steady flow from the sun. Why is it pulsating? Why is it generating so much light? Why is it not changing course? Why is it not increasing its speed as it gets closer to the sun like they all do? Why is it staying so steady state? How is it staying so steady state? How? 3i Atlas has a tail that faces the sun sometimes. This is not possible with physics, as we understand in supposed inanimate objects passing through the solar system. Solar wind causes, I was calling it cosmic wind. Solar wind causes inanimate objects to direct their tail of gases away from the sun, from the pressures of gases and photons, neutrinos, and waves coming out of the sun. Interestingly, novice and unconnected astronomers release photos of the tail at the sun, release photos of the tail pointing at the sun, whereas professional established institutions show a tail away from the sun. And here we begin to see some discrepancies with NASA. Why isn't NASA releasing any photos? Let me ask you guys a question. A number of you just said, because of the government shutdown, Chuck. Well, let me ask you a question. Let's say like you're a car collector and you're on vacation. You're on vacation, you're in Hawaii, you're living it up, having a great time. And all of a sudden, you notice the hotel you're staying at gives you a little flyer that says there's going to be this, 1969 Dodge Charger, your favorite old school car, is going to be on display. They got this awesome hot rod, and it's going to be down in the hotel lobby. So all you got to do is walk down the stairs, and you can see your favorite hot rod right there in the lobby. If you're a car collector, how many car collectors on this planet, how many of them would say, no, I don't want to see it. Not interested. I'm just going to stay up in my room, and I'm just going to watch TV, and I'm just going to hang out and sleep. I'm not going to go downstairs. I don't want to go down the elevator. I don't want to walk over and actually have to see it because I'm on vacation, right? So here we have NASA. We have the third, it's called 3i Atlas because it's the third interstellar object. In other words, this is only the third time in human history that this has happened. Okay? And all the NASA scientists who have been trained in astronomy and have been staring at objects in the sky their entire career have the opportunity to see an object that basically 99.9% of all humanity that has ever lived has never seen. And they're not releasing any photographs. They're not covering this object at all. Listen to what I just told you about it. And they're not interested. They're not interested. They're not releasing any news. They're not releasing any photos. And the little bit they say about it is just, it's just a meteor. Who cares? It's just a meteor. Who cares? And yet, look at the science. Look at what I've been telling you guys. Now, let's get into this trajectory thing, okay? Here's another thing. The scientists, the astronomers, totally ignoring this. Totally ignoring this. This thing is likely about 5 kilometers or larger in diameter. It's so big, okay? And it is traveling on the plane the equatorial plane of the galaxy, the galactic plane. It has been traveling, and you guys know the galactic plane is where all the dust is. It's where all the particles are. It's where all the objects are. It's where all the planets are. They're on that accretion disk, that line of demarcation that creates the galaxy. That pancake, this object, supposedly, according to NASA and the scientists, has come from the center of the galaxy. It's what they're saying. And that this thing, what they're saying is, this thing has been traveling along that accretion disk for hundreds of millions of years. And it has never hit one single object. It's how is that possible if you're traveling for hundreds of millions of years along the disk where all the dust and planets and particles are? You absolutely hit nothing the entire way. You don't break apart along the way, passing all these suns, passing all these solar systems with all this heat. Meteors break down over time as they travel past whatever they're doing with their rotations or their trajectory. They are breaking down. That's why they're gassing. This is the matter. It's dissolving. It's coming out of itself, meaning it's disintegrating. So objects, in other words, from science, if you asked a scientist, if an object travels along the trajectory of the galaxy, can it make it at 5 miles in diameter? The scientists will say no. They can't make it. So in other words, what we're seeing right now and what they're saying that it is impossible according to their own science and math. And it's coming in on the WOW signal, which was a signal that came through back in the 70s from this portion of the galaxy. This thing, according to Loeb, is coming from the same place that we got the WOW signal. And all the NASA scientists are like, nah, don't care. Don't care. What does that tell you? Why are they behaving like that? Even if you're not going to believe that it's aliens, whatever, it's fine. No problem. I'm not even sure it's aliens. But why on earth would you show no interest when that is your field of study? You've spent 20, 30, 40 years in study, and here you have only the third object ever, and they're ignoring it. Its trajectory is also across the galactic plane, which is theoretically impossible for objects the size of mountains like this one. They break apart, smash into other planets and stars, and disintegrate over hundreds of millions of years, traveling along the galactic plane. Atlas's closest proximity to the sun, and here we're going to get into the math, is October 29, 2025. We will be in the other side of the sun. I'm going to explain that with a little map. Hang on. Atlases, and here's where the numbers start. In fact, let me just show you the proximity thing first, and I'll show you the numbers because you guys are going to get blown away with the numbers. So check this out. Here. Now, as we watch our little movie here, let me grab hold of this here. Okay. So looking at, there's Atlas. Okay, coming up from the bottom. See now, see how close it passes to Mars? It just passed Mars, and you can see it right there. Now watch when it gets to perihelion, when it just makes that little turn. It's right opposite, just after Mars, right about where we're going to be here shortly. Look how the Earth is across from it, from the sun. The sun is between us and Atlas, and that keeps us from being able to look at it when it's at its closest point. So that's kind of mysterious as to what it's doing back behind the sun. And this is going to get into a theory I'm going to tell you guys. And then notice, and this is the part I wanted you guys to see. Now notice the Earth is now moving towards Atlas. Look, this is happening in November and December. It's moving towards Atlas. And then eventually it stops moving towards Atlas and Atlas moves away. Now this is the part you need to know. Remove. Okay. The point when Atlas reaches the closest point to Earth, the distance pauses at 269 million kilometers, and it stays there for 3 days. It stays there for 3 days. Guess what day it starts the 3-day, 269 million mile distance from the Earth? Guess what day that is? December 19. Guess what day it starts to move away from the Earth again? December 21, winter solstice. You're telling me this object that came from the center of the galaxy that was not destroyed along the way is now going to reach us in a perfect trajectory to pass by all these close planets here to the sun, to see all of them very clearly, including us. And you're telling me the very point at which it reaches the apex with Earth is the exact dates of the winter solstice? Probably the most important set of days in human history. Think of all that happens over winter solstice and near winter solstice every year. That's when the sun comes back, warmth returns to the earth, spring is coming. This is the whole idea in the metaphoric sense of the death and resurrection after 3 days. 3 days of pause is tied into our mythologies as human beings. I mean, that goes back to the freaking Canaanites, folks, because it's winter solstice. And you're telling me this thing with a millions and millions of years window is aligning not only on our trajectory of spin around the sun, but is actually peaking at, to the very day, our winter solstice. And that's coincidence? That's just dumb luck? Dumb luck. Scientists are ignoring it. Atlas's closest I'm going to show you how that lines up with tarot. Here we go. You ready? Atlas's closest proximity to Earth is on December 19th, 2025, which is the card 4 Emperor, if you add those numbers. When it reaches 269 million kilometers, card 17, the star. Isn't that interesting? Metaphorically, it's pointing at the star. Well, what is the star? I'll tell you in a minute. There is a 3-day pause of distance as Atlas curves trajectory and we spin around the sun, highly complex. Atlas begins to increase distance from Earth exactly on winter solstice, December 20 to 21. Let's look at the numbers. So it's playing into the world. October 29, when you add up the numbers, October 29, 2025, it adds up to the card, the world. Now, isn't that interesting with what the world means? The world involves all the aspects of nature, as we just looked at, air, water, fire, and earth. All are represented. Look what the card means. It represents the great works. Completion. Completion. Is that going to tie into the 5th race that we're looking at tonight at Rosicrucianism? Yes, it will. Unity, achievement, and fulfillment. And look at this. The world card symbolizes the completion of a major life cycle. The completion of a major life cycle. What is the Great Awakening denoting? We have realized the high enough consciousness to realize the Great Awakening. In other words, a great work has been completed, folks. A great work has been completed. We have reached, as the human collective, the plateau of awareness, of consciousness, to be able to qualify to transcend. What is the Great Awakening? It's a celebration of transcendence. Who's transcending? The human population, nature, the earth. And this is the card that lines up to this object that's coming in to our solar system. It represents a state of wholeness where the individual has integrated all aspects of themselves, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. The card suggests a moment of triumph. A moment of triumph. What's the Great Awakening? Fulfillment and the realization of one's place in the greater cosmic order. It can also indicate travel, global connections, or a broader perspective of life. Folks, how obvious does it have to be to see it? Then look at the other numbers. Closest proximity to Earth. Add those numbers up, and here we get the Emperor. Authority, order, command, responsibility, strength. What I'm always talking to you guys about, strength and responsibility, commanding your own life. The Ram, Aries, fire, assertiveness, change. That's the air card. What did I say about the air earlier? Quick change. Quick change. Temperature can change just like that. How do you think they heat coals? For smelting steel. Red equals vitality, passion, action, ambition, drive. Stone armor is discipline, dominance, resilience, strength. That sounds like a bunch of people who are regaining their sovereignty, their inner power, their inner light. Doesn't that sound like that? And look, the numbers line right up. The emperor represents authority, structure, control, embodying the qualities of leadership, discipline, responsibility. That is our calling, friends, to take on leadership, embodying quality and responsibility and discipline. That's the call. That's the first day of stillness. That's the call. The card encourages taking charge, setting boundaries, building a solid foundation. What are we doing right now as humankind, folks? What are we doing? Through practical action and clear decision-making. What have I said about reason and the importance of basic understanding of the basics? It can also represent a father figure, mentor, or institution that provides guidance or imposes rules. Sounds like self-organizing to me, doesn't it to you? Pretty exciting. And then look, the last day, distance from Earth when starting to leave on winter solstice, 269 million miles. That represents the star. Vulnerability, purity, openness, divine inspiration, nurturance, hope, renewal, balance. 8-pointed stars equals infinity. 7 stars aligns to the chakras. The Aquarius sign is an air sign. Water is emotions, cleansing, intuition, purification, renewal. Water is the subconscious. And what is the star doing here? She is pouring knowledge onto the 5 principles of the earth. That's why there are 5 streams. And the wisdom is being poured out onto the planet. Is it not? Is it not? Do you guys know more now than you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 1 year ago? Don't you? This is all being reflected in the star for what's coming. The star card is a beacon of hope, healing, and spiritual guidance, representing a period of calm and renewal after challenges. It signifies trust in the universe, inner peace, and the rediscovery of purpose. I mean, come on. The card encourages openness to divine inspiration, self-acceptance, and the belief that brighter days are ahead. It can also indicate moments of clarity, creative inspiration, or a sense of being guided by a higher power. And then here's all 3. Is it all coincidence? Is it? Is it all just coincidence? So I'll say this. It doesn't make any sense that NASA is ignoring this. It doesn't make any sense that astronomy institutions are shutting down their telescopes. They are not studying this. You have to ask yourself why. It doesn't make any sense. It's just like the hot rod collector who won't walk down the steps of his hotel room to go see his favorite hot rod that maybe he hasn't seen for half his life. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that it's outgassing all this and isn't changing course. It doesn't make any sense that it's shining as brightly as it is. It doesn't make any sense that when you do close-ups of it, it has these weird shapes. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. And our institutions, which are here supposedly to help us and inform us, don't want to talk about it, and are calling anyone who doesn't call it a comet a crazy person, and they're trying to dismiss their authority. See what I mean? Okay, let's go to comments. Let's see what you guys have to say. I would love to know what y'all are saying about 3i Atlas. So this is what I want you to do. Write any questions you have in caps. Obviously, I can't go through 300, 400 comments, which we have already acquired. And I want to see what you guys think. Yeah, exactly. They are. You're exactly right, King. Now, this is interesting. Hi, Melissa. Let's see what you got to say, love. You're here every week. Thank you. The atlas, or C1, is the topmost vertebrae of the human spine, located at the very top of the neck and directly below the skull. It is a unique ring-shaped bone that connects your skull to your spine. Interesting, Melissa. Interesting. This is how you know that we're in a magical world, because things like these events connect to each other metaphorically. You know, it's happening on the winter solstice. Well, that's an enormous metaphoric cue. And this is supposed to be a random object from the center of the galaxy that's taken hundreds of millions of years to get here. And it's aligning on winter solstice, the day of great the day of great change in the world. That's been the day of great change in the world for thousands and thousands of years, as long as we've been writing history. I mean, heck, they've been building religions around winter solstice since the beginning. And that's right when this thing is doing its thing. Okay. What do you guys got? Any questions? It's really interesting what you're saying here, Melissa. Thank you for your input. Thank you. Good question, Colt. I don't know. But the more study I do, the more it looks more to me, it looks like the Anunnaki consideration theory is probably true. It's looking more and more like that to me. Yes, I know NASA is BS, but that's all we've got to work with. I don't have a $40 million telescope in my backyard. They watch over that. Yeah, exactly. I agree. Completely clueless. Of course they're watching. They know folks, make no mistake. They know exactly what's going on. They're just not going to tell you. They're never going to tell you. They're just going to act like, it doesn't matter. Who cares? Just another comet. Just ignore it. Just ignore it. Okay. Hi, Cat Kiss. Let's see what you got to say, love. Uni consciousness is reconciling opposites, such as male and female, dark light, left brain, right brain, genius intuition. Yes, exactly. The genius intuits both. That's what the genius behavior is. Here we go, Pablo. Let's see what you have to say, buddy. You have a 50-50 crowd on this, Chuck. I have a 50-50. In what regard? What do you mean 50-50? What date comes first to realize its potential? We're realizing it now. That's happening. The Great Awakening is a slow roll. It's not a quick thing. It might, quick to the Great Awakening would be a couple of days. That would be quick. Quick is not this. That's not the way objects, quote unquote, beings or concepts flip like that. Okay. So when we say fast flip over, that could be a few days. And so what do you mean by the 50-50 thing? Because I don't know if I haven't made really any claims about Atlas. I've been just telling you scientifically what it's showing us, what it's rendering, but I'm not really giving you an opinion. Oh, dude, thank you so much, Charles. Thank you, friend. I appreciate that, Charles. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Yes, I agree, Cat Kiss. That's where I think this is pointing towards. I'm not fully convinced, but that's where I think this is pointing towards. Yes, I do, Lancelot. I'm not a doomer. I'm not a doomer. Okay, here we go. Hi, ARW. Hi, Chuck. I watched your Khazarian Mafia videos, and they are amazingly accurate and informative. Thanks, man. Just wanted to clarify what your full view on Jesus is. Thank you. Well, that was I didn't expect that. Okay. Jesus is a metaphor for compassion. Jesus is a metaphor for Christ consciousness. Jesus is a metaphor for the light that is within you. Jesus is a metaphor for the animating spirit that you are, that composes you. And so Jesus, in my opinion, is simply a metaphor for understanding. I don't believe in the historical record as it's been laid out by our controllers who have handed us a story. I don't believe the story, in other words, that the Catholic Church gave us in regards to Jesus, because I don't believe the Catholic Church. I don't trust what the Catholic Church has said, and I don't trust their mentality and what they think and how they think about humanity. And I've laid that out in my videos. And so I believe that they made up this idea that everyone's a sinner, and that this figure, this metaphor for Christ consciousness, has to die in order for you to be saved. I think that is all made up theology to impose fear and instigate shame into the public as a means and ways to control society. And it has worked very well, don't you think? Don't you think? I mean, 80% of the United States is Christian. 80% of the United States thinks Jesus is going to come save them. 80% of the United States thinks that only they and their friends that believe like them get to go to heaven, and everyone else is going to hell, including the Jews, including the Islamic folk, including the Buddhists, and especially, of course, the atheists. You see? And the reason why people think that is because they have bought into what is called an egregore. And Jesus is an egregore. Jesus is an idea, a collective unconscious idea that has been seeded into society. And so that egregore, Jesus is an egregore because it is the society that sustains the idea of Jesus, that sustains the idea that we're all sinners, that sustains the idea that everyone needs to be forgiven. And every single one of those is an egregore. And they're egregores because they were handed down to society by the authorities who proclaimed themselves the authorities. It's like I move into a new neighborhood and I walk to every one of the houses and tell every person that lives in the neighborhood, listen, I'm the new sheriff in town. And if you don't obey me, I'm going to come and kill you. I'm the new sheriff in town. And the reason why I'm the new sheriff in town is because God told me that I'm the new sheriff in town. That's exactly what the church said. God told us, the preeminent authorities of all the land, that we will nominate the one man called the Pope, and we have been given the authority to anoint the Pope, and the Pope is the voice of God, and we know that he's the voice of God because God told us, and you will take our word for it. And if you don't, we're going to kill you. That's how you birth an egregore. That's how you do it. And so through fear, through shame, through guilt, and of course, through the great drug relief, they will addict the entire society to the egregore. And that is what has happened. We have a society that has become addicted to Jesus, that has become addicted to religion, that has become addicted to Judaism, that has become addicted to Islam, that has become addicted to atheism, that has become addicted to Buddhism. And all these people that I claim that are addicted are the ones that say, I got it right. I've got the right religion. I got the right God. I got the right concept. I got the right words. I got it made. And this is how you take all the societies and separate them as far as the East is from the West. So it's not sin that is separated from you from as far as East is from the West, but your neighbors, your companions, those who you are here sharing the world with, and that we are obviously to show humility and compassion and love to one another. And right there at the seed of that individual, you have the seed of hate, because you know that all of the people that believe in these egregores will not bend, and they will continue to resist any individual that tries to convince them otherwise. That's why the Christian fights to stay a sinner. They fight to stay one. They want to be one. They have to be one because the Bible told them that. And so by being a sinner, they allow themselves access to the grace that the authorities said that they get when they bow to the religion, the egregore. You see? And that is unhealthy. And I talked about that in the letters that I presented at the beginning of this video. In fact, if you go down or if you go back to the beginning of the video, I answer 2 different letters from people who ask very similar questions, because I often get asked, what do I think of Jesus? That's my answer. Okay. He's probably drunk. I'm certainly not drunk, I promise. I feel badly. Yeah. Acceptance is key. Tolerance. So that's your thing, huh, Tamara? Love it. I like your little bumblebees. I like that. We will feel the encounter on December 19th, no doubt. I'd love it, man. I'm ready. Are you guys ready? I'm ready, man. I'm ready. I'm ready, dude. I'm ready. And if we're all going to be wiped out December 19th, we're all dead. Okay, I'm ready for that too. No fear. Ready to go. Full throttle, baby. Ready to go. No fear. No worry at all. None. None. Here we are. Maybe this is the real reason they called all the generals to Washington. I wonder, I wonder, Tao. I wonder. Don't you get the sneaking suspicion they're holding something from you, don't you? Don't you get that suspicion that they're not telling you? Isn't the NASA established? Yes, it is a Luciferian word and organized as such. Thus, the scientists are being forced by a Luciferian agenda to keep info from us that we miss this enlightenment. Yes, and that's correct, Stacy. And one of the things is that look at how few of them are courageous enough to come out and tell the truth. It's fear that runs these institutions. And if it is fear that is running these institutions and threat that is running these institutions, then how much truth are they going to be offering you? Man-made and closer than they are saying, in my opinion. Okay, Donald, that's interesting. Man-made, that's an interesting one. So they say it's from the center of the universe. They say, or the galaxy, sorry. They say it's from the center of the galaxy, which is why, okay, if it is, okay, let's say like it is. Let's say like it is from the center of the galaxy. Well, when it formed then it would have had iron and nickel in it, because the natural evolvement, the natural way that iron and nickel form is in the supernova, and they form together. You don't get one without the other. So how is this thing totally iron free? Like not even 1%. Like there's no iron coming out of this thing. None. It doesn't. Yeah, something must end to usher in the new. Exactly. You must empty the bowl. You must empty the bowl in order to learn something new. If your bowl stays empty, meaning your mind, and you got the right God, you got the right book, you're believing the right things, you're walking the right path, right? Your bowl is full. Your bowl is full. You can't learn anything. Your bowl is full. Try to pour more knowledge into there, just going to overspill out. You're not going to learn anything. You must dump the bowl. Dump it. Dump it. Throw it all out. Throw out your religion. Heck yeah. Throw out your religion. Throw out the government. Throw out the medical system. Those are poisons. Get them out of your life. Get away from these institutions. They will sicken you. The medical field will sicken your body. The religious field will sicken your mind. And your government will take away everything you own. Yeah, I agree. Okay, you guys ready to start the interview? We've been at this an hour. Let's get started on the interview. I have got the most awesome continuation of this interview. You guys ready? Are you guys ready? Yeah, exactly. Are you guys ready? Here we go. There we go. Let's get this thing going here. Now, this is the interview that we started last week. Here we go.
Unlock the secrets of the heavens and achieve parity with the gods, so that you no longer need to be a servile worshiper of some kind of...
Okay, here we go.
Unlock the secrets of the heavens and achieve parity with the gods, so that you no longer need to be a servile worshiper of some kind of overlord. And this is what Plato tells us was the great sin of the Atlanteans, is that they stopped sacrificing to the gods and worshiping them, so that Zeus basically calls a convocation of the Olympians and decides to wipe the world clean in what we more commonly know as Noah's flood, right? And so the biblical story of Noah is exactly the same thing, especially when you look at, in Genesis 6, right? There's a whole part of that story that's clearly been excised. So in Genesis 6, all of a sudden we're told, like, in rapid succession, oh, well, there was great iniquity on the earth, and God decided to wipe the entire earth clean in the flood. Wait a minute here. And the sons of the Elohim came down, and they found the daughters of man fair, and they, interbred with them, and so on and so forth, and the earth was full of iniquity. Seriously, in 2 paragraphs, you're going to tell us that God regretted the entire creation and wiped the whole world clean, right? There's a backstory here. And
that's really what we've got to pay attention to here, folks, is the subtleties. It's just like what NASA is doing. Why is the Catholic Church hiding so many details? Like he just said, they flipped everything in 1 paragraph. Why? You've got a long form story here you're working on. Why one of the most critical elements in human history is covered in a paragraph. Why is that? Because they don't want you to know any details. They don't want you to know what this is actually pointing towards, the metaphor that it's pointing towards. All right, continuing.
You find the backstory preserved in the Book of Enoch, which was first discovered in Ethiopia, and it clearly was at one point part of the Tanakh.
Okay, the Tanakh. What is that? The Tanakh, also known as the Hebrew Bible, is the sacred. Now, this is going to tee you guys up. I am teeing you guys up for the rest of this interview because the stuff that he's going to start to cover is based on all these little details that I'm going to be showing you over the next 2 minutes. When you hear that little bell, I'm going to come in and I'm going to help explain what he's talking about so that when he gets to the meat of this next portion, you'll be like, holy God. Okay, here we go. The Tanakh, also known as the Hebrew Bible, is the sacred text of Judaism comprising 3 main sections. The Torah, the 5 books of Moses, detailing creation, the patriarchs, and Mosaic law. The Nevi'im, prophets, including historical narratives and prophetic writings from figures like Isaiah and Jeremiah. And the Ketuvim, writings, a diverse collection of poetry, wisdom, literature, and historical accounts like Psalms and Proverbs, compiled over centuries. It served as the spiritual and historical foundation of the Jewish faith and identity, emphasizing conventional relationship with God, moral teachings, and the history of the Israelites. Its influence extends to Christianity and Western thought, with texts dating back to around 1200 BC to 200 CE. There was a lot going on then, as you guys know. Right when monotheism was solidifying and the church was organizing in the Levant, reflecting ancient Israelite theology, culture, and law.
And was excised, due to whatever, kind of, theological power game that whoever was playing.
Confident that it was part of the original.
For sure, because the story makes no sense without it. And what you see in the Book of Enoch is a direct Hebraic parallel to what you see in Plato's account of Atlantis. And then, other cultures have their own versions of that. The Mayans do too.
In Enoch, it's the Watchers or whatever. And so, okay,
so what they're showing, what they're talking about are parallels between these different mythologies. And so I have highlighted what they have mentioned in these colors that match to show you that this story from the Book of Enoch has a parallel to Plato's account of Atlantis. Could it be? Could it possibly be? They're talking about the same thing. Could it possibly be? Considering what they're talking about, listen to this. Fallen angels are the account of Atlantis through the narrative of the Watchers here. Fallen angels who descend to earth, mate with human women, and produce giant offspring known as the Nephilim, imparting forbidden knowledge such as metallurgy, astrology, and warfare that leads to widespread corruption, violence, and eventual divine punishment via a catastrophic flood to cleanse the world. This story mirrors Plato's Atlantis, where the god Poseidon fathers demigod kings. Well, that sounds like fallen angels who descend to earth and mate with human women. And the Poseidon fathers demigod kings with mortal women, establishing an advanced island civilization, rich in resources and technology that initially thrives, but succumbs to hubris, greed, and imperial aggression, culminating in its destruction by the gods through earthquakes and submersion in a single cataclysmic event. Both stories, rooted in themes of divine human interbreeding, the perils of illicit wisdom and power, and cosmic judgment, suggest a shared archetypal motif of a pre-flood advanced society. Boy, that sounds familiar. Enoch's advanced society, punished for transgressing natural and moral boundaries, with Enoch's western idyllic land, think Cana, of metal mountains, and a central palace, think the ziggurat, further echoing Atlantis' geography and opulence. And all I'm trying to show you here, folks, sorry. Good grief. These controls on this thing are just messed up. Okay. What I am trying to show you is that these all render parallels to each other. And look at the type of stories they are, and look at the books that they are in. In other words, they're important, they're heavy, it's not light. And isn't it amazing that they all line up? They line up together. Look. Fallen angels.
How does all of this connect to the UFO story?
Hang on. Look, fallen angels who descend to earth, mate with human women, and produce giant offspring known as the Nephilim. Poseidon fathers demigod kings with mortal women. These Nephilim impart forbidden knowledge such as metallurgy, astrology, and warfare. Here, the children of Poseidon establish an advanced island civilization rich in resources and technology. Look at the parallels. This leads to widespread corruption and violence. This initially thrives but succumbs to hubris, greed, and imperial aggression. This is the perils of illicit wisdom or power. Look at it's telling you a story. Eventual divine punishment via a catastrophic flood to cleanse the world. Then the story in Atlantis, culminating in its destruction by the gods through earthquakes and submersion in a single cataclysmic event. This is cosmic judgment, punished for transgressing natural and moral boundaries. Do you guys, I mean, these parallels are so obvious. They are so obvious here. They're so obvious that how can you see all those parallels and say, oh, nah, just coincidence, brother. Just coincidence, bro. Just coincidence, bro. Ignore it. They're all just making stuff up. Doesn't mean anything. It's totally meaningless. They're just talking about gods that don't exist, powers that don't exist. They're just giving people stories to make them feel good. You actually have to work harder to dismiss and deny it than you do to integrate it. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that? It's a lot harder to sit here and deny this here. It's a lot harder to sit here and deny all this than it is to just see the parallels and integrate it. Your mind works less. That's another way that you know the lie. Okay, let's continue on the interview. Let's go to the right size here.
How does all of this connect to the UFO story? Because you hear, I don't know, like, for example, Diana Pasulka came on my podcast and she said, Jacques Vallée.
Hang on. I got to pause before it changes. Here we go. Jacques Vallée, born 1939 and still alive, age 86, was a French-American computer scientist, astronomer, and venture capitalist, and has been a pioneering figure in ufology since the 60s. As a young researcher, he collaborated closely with J. Allen Hynek on Project Blue Book, a U.S. Air Force program running from 47 to 69, tasked with investigating over 1,200 UFO sightings to determine their nature, assess national security threats, and provide scientific explanations. I mean, you could basically reword that. Tasked with covering up over 1,200 UFO sightings to determine their nature, access national security threats, and provide disinformation of scientific explanations, contributing to early scientific scrutiny of sightings while authoring influential books like Anatomy of a Phenomenon 65, which catalog global reports, and Passport to Mangonia, which drew parallels between, key here, parallels between modern UFO encounters and ancient folklore of fairies, demons, and visions, proposing an interdimensional or control system origin where non-human intelligences manipulate human perception across time and cultures. And do you see now where it's starting to get crazy? Do you see? Look at this. The UFO, to give you an idea why they are hiding the UFO phenomenon, the UFO involves the dismantling, the UFO disclosure involves the dismantling of the religious systems which were put into place by the aliens to control the populace. And they cannot have the public knowing that, because what's going to happen to the public when they find that out? You see, that's why they're hiding it from you. It has nothing to do with your betterment. It has nothing to do with protecting you. It has nothing to do with helping you. It has everything to do with suppressing you and keeping you from knowing the actual truth of the world we are living in. And the UFO phenomena opens this door. And this gentleman here Jason is about to lay it out thick for you to understand it. Lay it on thick. Over decades, Vallée authored over a dozen works, including the Dimensions trilogy, emphasizing the highly strangeness of phenomena like abductions and cattle mutilations, which you guys have all seen, and consulted for entities like Robert Bigelow's National Institute for Discovery Science and the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, advocating for interdisciplinary approaches to decode what he views as a profound challenge to our understanding of reality. There it is again, a profound challenge to our understanding of reality rather than mere extraterrestrial visitors. And this is the bigger story, folks. That's the bigger story. That's the bigger story. This is why all this UFO stuff is so highly contained. Because they don't know what the society is going to do when they find out their technology, their religion, their belief systems came out of aliens, came out of otherworldly creatures who are running this planet as a farm to keep all of the humans that they're farming from waking up. And this is why the whole UFO thing, I mean, they are really having a hard time letting it go, releasing the information. And you're finding out why right now.
Is very interested in the devil and demons and fallen angels.
I'm having lunch with Jacques Vallée. So we're in his study, and it's really amazingly beautiful here in the Bay Area. And he starts to explain a couple of things to me, and I notice a bunch of books on shelves, and I notice those things, right?
Yeah.
So I go and I start to look to see what he has on this one shelf, and then he takes one of the books off, and it was a book about angels. And he says, of course, you can't have one without the other, right? Because he picked up another book and he said, you need to read this book. And whenever he says that to me, of course, I'm going to get the book and read it. But this one was weird. So he showed it to me, and it was The History of Satan. It just had these big words on it that says Satan. And again, if I wasn't a little bit concerned before, I was absolutely concerned at that point. I was like, you know, Jacques Vallée is handing me this book that says Satan on it. And so he said, look at the pagination. So I, looked at the pagination. It was 666.
Whoa.
Yeah. I thought that was so, of course.
Wild.
It was a really weird moment. And he said that in the States, we think of Satan or the devil as really, really terrible, right? But, he said that the French, they have a different view of it, and it's less sensationalist. That's what he was saying.
So what does all of this have to do with the modern kind of UFO topic?
I knew Jacques Vallée for a while, and
I spoke to him this morning, actually.
Yeah. So after, I think it was 7, within 9 months of the time Prometheus and Atlas came out, he had invited me to his home, and we had a nice dinner and a fairly intimate conversation. And I brought this question up with him, and because we were discussing basically, and we'll come around to this, time travel, and whether, he believed that these were basically humans that were reaching back into our epoch from the future, and that essentially, there was a breakaway civilization that had developed a hyperdimensional relationship to the various space-times of the epochs of human history. That a breakaway civilization with time travel essentially was able to have a fifth dimensional relationship with the various 4D space-times of different human historical epochs, right? And I basically said to him, well,
some sort of multiverse management system.
Yes, and I think that's a
branch management system.
And I think that's definitely part of what's going on, right? So how I start my book, Closer Encounters, is I lay out all the different hypotheses. Of course, the ETH, the extraterrestrial hypothesis, and then, time travel, interdimensional hypothesis, the psychic projections hypothesis, crypto-terrestrial, meaning survivors of Atlantis, which we're touching on here, and ultimately also avatars of a simulacrum. Are we living in a simulacrum? are these, in some sense, avatars from the programming level of the simulacrum, which is something that Vallée, as a computer scientist, also has intimated in various writings of his. So, but the point is this, that, we were discussing this, hyperdimensional, extratemporal relationship that these entities have to humans in various historical epochs. And I said to him, well, if this is what you think, why aren't you more direct about expressing that? And he said, because it involves deeply entrenched religious sensibilities of various societies. And there's a sociological dimension to this that could be catastrophic in terms of religious belief systems.
We're skipping over one part, which is, what does he think? What is the relationship between, the devil, demonic, and UFOs and all this stuff?
I didn't pin him down on that, so I don't want to speak for him, but I suspect that what a lot of people are concerned about, including people in the deep state of our own government, first and foremost, is that the bad guys won. In the struggle over reshaping human history, we wound up losing a rebellion against a control system that abides to this day. And the meta-narratives that have dominated the rise and fall of various societies throughout the course of history, including, for example, the destruction of the secular humanistic culture of the late Roman Empire, the Library of Alexandria, libraries at Corinth, the entire, that I'm getting this figure from Carl Sagan. We lost 98% of the knowledge of classical antiquity. They have actually done studies based on the references that we do have to other texts by various authors in the classical manuscripts that have survived, and they've been able to do a reconstruction that shows that we lost at least 98% of the knowledge of classical antiquity. Well, who does that benefit? Who benefits through all these resets of human societies? Another horrendous one.
Who do you guys think? Who benefits? Who benefits directly? Catholic Church.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Islamic conquest of Iran, at least as bad as the Judeo-Christian takeover of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
So,
and you have all this kind of forbidden archaeology where you see precocious advancements in past civilizations that shouldn't really exist, whether it's a Sumerian model of the heliocentric universe or the Antikythera mechanism, which is this, kind of ancient, almost astronomically aligned computer system that is found on this, shipwreck in the Aegean Sea. You have a bunch of examples of this.
Okay, here we go. We're going to study the Antikythera mechanism. If you guys don't know about this, this is an amazing machine. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in 1901 shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera, is an ancient Greek analog computer dating to around 100 BC, hailed as the world's first known mechanical calculator. This intricate bronze device, composed of interlocking gears, was used to predict astronomical positions and events with remarkable precision. It could calculate the positions of the Sun, Moon, and the 5 known planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, track lunar and solar eclipses, and display the timing of significant events like the Olympic Games. By simulating the complex motions of celestial bodies, including the moon's elliptical orbit, it showcased the advanced astronomical knowledge, prowess, and engineering of ancient Greek civilization. Let's see if this thing goes ahead and plays. I do have...
Let's lay it all out. Now, there were just shy of...
Excuse me. So this guy, this gentleman here, has made the machine. I found a dude on YouTube that made the Antikythera mechanism, and I'm going to show it to you right now. And this is what I want you to notice. These gears that he's made, these arms, all of this metallurgy that he's showing you, the claim is that they were able to do this kind of machining, this exact machining, way back at the, 200 BC? 200 AD, right around in there, wherever they found this thing. But the point is, this should not be possible.
200 machine parts and another 100 or so fasteners to hold it together. So I use these layout sheets to keep everything organized by subassembly. Just like the original, everything is made as a matched assembly, so inadvertently switching two parts or installing a part backwards has potential to bind up or damage the whole thing. Making all these pieces was about a 10-month process and included making much of my own tooling.
10 months!
Specifically, a digital indexer is close to required to evenly space the gear teeth with the unusual tooth counts in the device. Many of the parts require fixtures to be made.
So what he's saying is all this stuff was supposedly done by hand. By hand. Folks, you can't, let me tell you something. You cannot hold your hand steady enough. You cannot hold your hand steady enough to make these kind of gears. You can't do it. You can't do it. You have to have machining facilities to be able to do this kind of exacting work. And again, what does science say? Oh yeah, they were able to do it, no problem. Yep, they did it. It's great. Isn't it awesome? They figured it out.
Others had to be attempted several times before I got a viable part. About 90% of the build time was spent on these two machines alone. I did also make use of a water jet cutter for roughing out parts that needed to be made from plate stock, as well as cutting the Metonic and Serro spirals in the rear dial plate. Additionally, a laser cutter worked great for engraving the dials on the front and rear plates of the machine. We can now add the 8 support pillars around the perimeter and bolt the dial plate over top. Let's flip over to the front side of the mid plate next.
This is what it actually looked like. This is the Antikythera machine from the inside. You're seeing it.
The 3 pin gears go onto this plate, generally called the superior planet plate. Then the 3 input gears are bolted together on a common collar before they join the pin gears. This top half of the upper planetarium then joins the lower half already on the machine. With that done, the front dial goes on and is secured with 4 bolts. The front pointers are next. These are relatively straightforward, installed from bottom to top.
Watch this.
We end on the moon indicator, whose central rod goes deep into the bowels of the machine to connect to our lunar anomaly train from earlier. The last things on the front are the input gears and their supports, and finally the hand crank.
Watch this.
We'll finish up on the back dial, where the small pointers for the Callippic, Games, and Exeligmos dials are installed. Finally, the Metonic and Serros spiral pointers from earlier are the last pieces to go on. With everything assembled, let's run through how it is used. The general principle is that the device has a single input and many outputs that all stay synchronized together, such that they can be compared. On the front dial, we have the day of the year, the moon phase, and the position of the sun, moon, and 5 planets along the zodiac. To make it more understandable, I've used modern months and included both the traditional zodiac dates as well as the true boundaries between the constellations. On the rear dial plate, we have the Metonic calendar spiral up top, which I've simply numbered with the 235 months and marked for each of the 19 years. On the original device, this was a more complex system that included intercalary years and hollow months, with the 5-turn spiral structure helping to lay out which days were skipped in which months. The smaller dial on the left indicates the Callippic cycle, a 1-day refinement across 4 Metonic cycles or 76 years. The dial on the right is called the Games dial. It shows a 4-year cycle of where the 2 Pan-Hellenic Games would have been held, between Olympia, Isthmia, Pythia, Nemea, Helea, and Na. The bottom spiral dial is the Serros cycle, used for eclipse prediction. I've used symbols to denote the anticipated eclipses between total, annular, and partial solar eclipses, and total or penumbral lunar eclipses. The small dial on the right is the Exeligmos pointer, which is an 8-hour refinement across 3 Serros cycles. Because all of the dials stay synchronized, the device can be advanced or reversed until a certain input condition is met, and then the output of all the others can be read. For example, you could advance until Mercury goes retrograde and see what constellation that occurs in. Or see how long Venus will be visible at sunrise.
Jesus.
Or what constellation the moon will be in at the next lunar eclipse.
Look at the spiral dial.
Or solar eclipse.
Insane.
Yes. So on the one hand, you have
Can you imagine? Think about it now. Can you imagine the kind of power you would wield if you had that kind of technology? We're literally in a matter of a couple minutes, you could figure out all the eclipses for the next 50 years to the day, to the hour. Imagine. And they were walking around with this back in the day. It took this guy in modern age, modern technology, 10 months with advanced scientific knowledge to know this, to be able to do that. And the emphasis I'm trying to make to you here is that they have been hiding technology from us. The elites, those that are at the top, have been systematically, purposefully hiding technology from us. Okay, and that's
like
another reason
gifts.
why the UFOs
Gifts from Prometheus,
Mm.
to speak archetypally.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, you have attempts to decimate human knowledge and engineer regression and retardation to basically, reverse human progress. And one of the most interesting
So
episodes.
who would that benefit? This sort of
Well, whoever's running the control
constant
system.
Malthusian,
Right.
feast and famine sort of
Right.
cyclical, cataclysm thing. That would benefit whoever's running the control.
Well, exactly.
Do you have a model of who that is, or
Yeah, I do.
who is it?
I do. So, okay, the devil's in the details, or maybe we should invert the religious symbolism there, right? But let me just point to one interesting example of this. Right before the Renaissance took place, right? I mean, Renaissance is obviously an example of a rebirth of the will to know and human cultivation, both artistically and scientifically, right? I mean, Prometheus didn't just bring science to humanity. Prometheus brought techne, both in the sense of the arts and the sciences. And so the Renaissance is a quintessentially Promethean phenomenon.
Mm.
It's
the Prometheus, the story, for those of you that don't know, Prometheus stole the fire of wisdom from Zeus and gave it to humanity. This is the Joker. This is the individual. This is the one that brings about change and cataclysm. And so what he's doing right here is he's equating these major figures in history with Prometheus, namely Jesus and Satan, as these people bring about knowledge and change to the people. So in other words, like he just said, you can dumb down and stupefy all the masses if you just totally ruin the meanings of these metaphors with historical record, meaning they are intermingling the historical record with mythology in order to further confuse all of the people. And he's saying right here, when you have this kind of technology, you not only have the power to advance the society, but you also have the power to destroy the society. And that's the case he's making here.
interesting that immediately before the Renaissance, you had these huge UFO battles over various European cities. And they're reflected in the broadsheets of the time, the newspapers of the time. In Basel, Switzerland, in Nuremberg, in Germany, they show these huge battles between objects in the sky.
Really?
And yeah, and some of them, I mean, you can, Valets reprinted them in Wonders in the Sky. There are a number of texts on the UFO phenomenon. These are newspapers that show huge triangular craft, spheres of various colors, attacking each other, some of them falling from out of the sky in battles that took place in several places over Central Europe.
This is like 15th century or
just before the Renaissance, 1400s.
1400.
Yeah. So just before so to me, that looks like the rebel faction gaining ground and opening up a space for humanity to progress again for a while, right? Now, there was also...
Whoa, that's interesting. So you think that like these celestial battles take place right before there's some airdropping of human technology or something?
Look, I don't want to reduce human agency, by calling it an airdropping, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little help, right? But at the very least...
Valet would say...
I mean, look at the potential for Atlas. If it creates the solar flash, puts everyone into a DMT trip. I'm going to get into that in a minute here, but I mean, it's amazing the parallels of this ancient history where you get this big technological breakthrough after you have this big cataclysm. And that story has repeated time and time again. And look what's about to happen, possibly.
Donation
Yeah,
sites.
yeah. And at the very least, there was a safeguarding of a space for human development and, the rebirth of ingenuity and so forth. But then, as I was mentioning earlier, let's say the Jesuit order tried to capture that and control it again through, a front man like Descartes, where you had somebody like Giordano Bruno developing a very holistic sort of, how can I put it, hermetic, alchemical matrix for what could have been a very different form of modern science. And that was destroyed through the reductive, dualistic model of Descartes, right? Where everything in the physical world can only be understood in terms of mechanistic causality.
Remember, Descartes was the stormtrooper for the Catholic Church. He was a Jesuit. Remember, we studied that last week. You're hearing now what he did and how he did it.
And then whatever spiritual can't be discussed rationally, and therefore, the church continues to have a monopoly over that discourse. So there were attempts to then basically suffocate the Renaissance and warp the energies of the Renaissance to have it miscarry into what became materialistic, reductionistic modern science.
Yeah, you have this great book, I think Frances Yates, The Rosicrucian Enlightenment. She talks about King Frederick sort of housing a lot of these heretical thinkers, John Dee, Edward Kelly, and I think Giordano Bruno.
That's right.
Well, and then there's this war, and I think Descartes fights on the other side of the war, right?
Exactly.
Which is really interesting. And so, it's almost symbolic that you have this kind of, fighter in the world of reason actually engaging in this battle against the literal people housing or providing safe haven to some of these more heretical thinkers who are claiming to commune directly with angels and that sort of thing.
That's right. And, the Renaissance was supposed to take place in the 1300s. If you look at...
Wait, what does that mean?
Well...
They missed their programming schedule?
If you look at, the trajectory of cultural development in the so-called Middle Ages, right? You start to see the development of academies and the rudiments of empirical investigations into nature in the late 1200s. And, people like Paracelsus and Cornelius Agrippa and the great alchemists come from out of this cultural development. This is where the Faust story comes from, right? The legend of Dr. Faustus. It's that period in the late 1200s, early 1300s. And then what happened? The Black Plague. When you look at accounts of what actually went on during the Black Plague, and here, the work of William Bramley is absolutely indispensable. He wrote this book, The Gods of Eden. And as far as I can tell, Bramley had he wrote this masterful text, and then he never went back to the UFO phenomena. So he's the furthest thing from a grifter, who just wanted to write one book after another about this stuff, right? Yeah. No, he settled it, and that was it. He had he said what he had to say. So Bramley started out as a very conventional researcher trying to understand war profiteering. He wanted to understand, who was behind engineering all these wars throughout history and whether there was some systematic way in which profiteering was taking place through large-scale engineered human suffering. And he was thinking, okay, bankers and banking elites and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
And he finds...
And look, they played it all out in the world wars, didn't they? If you think about it. And you realize that the thought in all of that happened from World War I on was all being planned all the way back for 1,000 years, which gives you a really good reason why the controllers who wrote the prophecy in the Bible were simply just going to carry out the prophecies that they wrote. It wasn't that they were predicting something that, could or could not possibly happen. They knew they were going to disseminate the world that way. They knew they were going to destroy society that way. So they simply wrote a book to establish within the egregore of religion the fact that we're going to have a tribulation for everything to change. So everyone goes along with the idea of a tribulation. The population doesn't resist. They've already accepted it because the religion says there's a tribulation coming. And so they don't fight it. They go along right with it. They fall right into the tribulation because the religion told them that. And here you're seeing this was all being planned back in the day, in the same way Descartes, when he was told by the Catholic Church, you need to find some kind of 2D science that's going to lock all of these people into this 3D, 2D matrix. And then we then get control of the 4D and beyond matrix because we're the spiritual authorities. Systematic, as I've been telling you guys repeatedly.
UFOs.
How does he connect that? That's fascinating.
So he goes in detail through archival material that's left from various historical epochs, including in this case, the Middle Ages.
Mm.
And he notices that at the time the Black Plague breaks out, there are many UFO sightings. There are sightings of objects that land in fields.
Mm-hmm.
It was so prominent that hysteria broke out about it in the French court, and Charlemagne was considering declaring war on the tyrants of the air.
During the reign of Charlemagne, there were many accounts of encounters with
That's Rod Serling, folks. All the old school people, that's Rod Serling, dude.
tyrants of the air and their aerial ships. These accounts so concerned Charlemagne that those reporting such strange phenomena were subject to torture and death. Here is one recorded event given between the 8th and 9th century in France. One day, among other instances, it chanced at Lyon that 3 men and a woman were seen descending from these aerial ships. The entire city gathered about them, saying that they were magicians sent by Charlemagne's enemy to destroy the French harvest. In vain, the 4 innocents sought to vindicate themselves, saying that they were their own country folk and had been carried away a short time since by miraculous men who had shown them unheard of marvels. Luckily, the Bishop of Lyon pronounced the incident as false, saying it was not true these men had fallen from the sky, and what the townfolk said they had seen there was impossible. The people believed what their good bishop said rather than their own eyes, and set at liberty the 4 ambassadors from the ship.
And this is where the whole Magonia thing that Vallée talks about, this is that period where, you had these people supposedly coming from Magonia, and some of them were arrested. And then this Bishop Agabard, who was like a proto-rationalist, came up with a justification for why this couldn't possibly be real. So these guys got let go and they went back to their airships or whatever the hell. But here's the really creepy part about this research that Bramley did, is that he found that the plague broke out only after these people would land in the fields, come out of these objects, land in the field, and they would go around with these hoods on and these spray cans that became the basis for the scythe and the Grim Reaper image. They were shrouded, and they had these things, from out of which stuff would spray. And it became the image of the scythe and the iconography of the Grim Reaper. And not only were they spraying the fields, they would sometimes walk through towns, and people would be terrified and go into their homes, and these guys would walk and deliver door-to-door service, spraying the doors of individual homes, where then the plague would break out shortly thereafter.
What does that sound like? Does that sound like the precursor to vaccines? Folks, do you guys realize how long you have been hunted by these groups? Bro, this guy's talking about the Middle Ages and earlier, man. Thousands and thousands of years ago. That's what he's talking about. And it's, like I said, systematic, planned, developed. It's happening. They're not just talking about it. They're doing it. They're spraying the houses and sickening these people. This is biological warfare. I mean, what? It's incredible. And this stuff is being reported.
Okay. So it was biological warfare. And you know what the result of that was? A mass retreat back into religious fundamentalism.
Bam!
We were about to have the Renaissance in the late 1200s, early 1300s.
There it is.
And then all of a sudden, this Black Plague comes. People are terrified. It decimates the population of Europe. So it also reduces the industrial work base for a scientific industrial revolution.
Did you notice what COVID did to all of us? To the society? Shut down the industries, shut down business. Folks, this is replaying. You're in a replay. This is nothing new. We have been hunted. This is nothing new. This has been going on the entire time. The entire time, as we've been talking about for years now.
And worst of all, it causes people to retreat back into a regressive religious belief system.
So what's Bramley's conclusion as to what the connection is between?
Sorry, but what do you see people doing now? Regressing back into religious belief systems. Don't you see it? Regressing back. So many. Do you see it?
UFOs and war profiteering.
He thinks that basically these, plague promulgators
Mm-hmm.
are representing the same faction that was lording over humanity in the Sumerian epoch through, the name of Enki or whatever, the Anunnakis aligned with Enki, or the Elohim in the, Old Testament, or the Devas, to put it in Hindu terms. Richard Thompson, he's the guy who co-authored Forbidden Archaeology with Michael Cremo. Richard Thompson has written a great UFO book, like looking very carefully at Hindu scriptures such as the Ramayana and Mahabharata. I think it's called Alien Identities. Now, granted, he's coming from out of a Hare Krishna tradition, and so he has his own religious commitments and so forth, but you can filter that out and just look at the empirical analysis. And it's very clear from Thompson's analysis in that book that, the Devas, who are worshipped by, I don't know, a billion Hindus or something, are these entities. So, we're in a very unfortunate position, right? If, in fact, we're inside of a control system governed by people who want us to remain subordinates and are doing everything that they can so that we don't achieve parity with them. Now, obviously, this has tremendous implications in terms of any so-called disclosure, because UFO disclosure, in the context of the, modern, industrial, or whatever you want to say, post-industrial, economy that we have today, would mean our rapidly achieving technological parity with these people. And by the way, we'll come back to this, but this whole NHI discourse really bothers me.
Well, who are these
right?
people?
Yeah, exactly. Who are these people?
So the NHI is like a psyop against
Right.
the idea of that there's actually just a strata of people.
I think this is what's so deeply disturbing to most researchers, and it's the deepest secret that's being covered up by various governments in the world. It's easier for the average, person to imagine even a hostile threat emerging from deep space that has nothing like a human face, because you can, compartmentalize it. It's like, the War of the Worlds or whatever, right? But the idea that what's really going on here is that there's a Hegelian master-slave dialectic at work in human history.
I wrote a chapter in my book on the Hegelian dialectic that he's talking about now, and this is important to understanding the agency of sin. A Hegelian dialectic is more complicated. It is a reductionistic type of circular conditioning dialogue which works from an agenda through a simple three-part algorithm. This is how society has been controlled with Hegelian dialectics: thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. The tension of the thesis and the antithesis equate to a synthesis which serves the agenda. And as we all know, we are run by agenda, not humanness. We are run by agendas. Agenda initiates the dialectic. Rather than a never-ending chase like a psychological red herring, the Hegelian dialectic is a circular, self-serving, reductionistic, psychological manipulation tool. There are three parts to a Hegelian dialectic in addition to its overall agenda: the thesis, which is the proposal of a particular concern; the antithesis, which is the answer or antidote or antithetic of the thesis; and then the synthesis, which resolves the tension of the two. This is straight out of my book, straight from my YouTube page. And here is a model of the Hegelian dialectic. So how are we going to convert the population? We want to convert the population into Christians. So how do we do that? Because the agenda is conversion. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is establish our thesis. What is the thesis? That there is sin, that every man is sinful, that everything is fallen. This is the thesis. That the world must be saved. Humanity must be saved. This is the thesis which will serve the agenda of control. And then the agenda individuals, the controllers, then present the antithesis. And what is the antithesis to sin? Jesus is the antithesis. So if you simply take this prescription, take this spiritual medicine, you will heal yourself, or Jesus will heal you, and then you get access to God, which means synthesis conversion. That's why they're called converts, because they have been converted to the agenda of the controllers. And since the controllers want to remain in control, they put the population into fear, which subjects them to the idea of sin, which causes fear, which causes alienation, which causes dread. And so what do the people do? Just like they did with the Patriot Act. Please, please help me, save me. Please save me, please. Okay, that's what sin does. That's what fear does. And so then you then have the populace who is then asking for an answer from the very people who handed them the red herring, who handed them the dialectic. And the controllers say, okay, here you go. Here's Jesus. And that's going to take care of your sin problem. And now the church is the authority of everything spiritual, because the basic for understanding who you are in Christianity is understanding that you're a sinner. And right there, they got control. Right there. And that is what he is talking about when he talks about these Hegelian dialectics. This is what has held the population in contempt. Hegelian dialectics. This graph is key to understanding how Christianity manipulates the human psyche and puts it into a ceaseless circular conundrum resolution dialogue. Hegelian dialectic diversions work through rational logic, reason, oversimplified, key line there, oversimplified problem and solution dialogue rather than felt intuition, gut instinct, and shin-oriented understanding, because the church doesn't want you understanding by the shin, by the heart. They want you understanding by the mind, which doesn't exist. That's where they want you taking your cues. Christianity uses the heart to coerce guilt and, I'll read the next line here, it'll come up, shame, not to self-guide the individual through nature's self-organizing holistic principles. The dialogue anchors the Christian to mind. That's what I just said. To mind, not heart. The Christian lives in a reductionistic spirituality, meaning we're in the in-group, you're in the out-group, so you're in trouble and we're saved. That's reductionism. That's reducing things down so much that it no longer is reasonable. It's just reactionary. It is not proactive. It is just simply reacting to the statements of fear. The Christian lives in a reductionistic spirituality, which is why converts take on the unreasonable notion that biblical spiritual understanding is the exclusively correct truth in an endlessly varying, self-becoming universe. Christians have no faith in nature or themselves because they have been taught to believe nature and man are fallen enterprises. Can you see it? You've been set up. Christianity has no interest in people thinking spiritually for themselves because the Bible has no trust for sinners. I mean, can a sinner be trusted? No. And guess what every person is? They're a sinner. Even if they're saved, they're still a saved sinner, and a sinner can't be trusted. Can you see the lack of development this inevitably fosters? This is the bad psychology that underlies Western religion. Because thinking you're a sinner makes you behave like a sinner. Because that's what you believe you are. That's seeding a dialectic, a dialogue in your mind that says you're a sinner, you're fallen, you need to be saved. These are implants. These are spiritual vaccinations that make you sicker. They don't heal you, they make you sicker. Do you see? And when you understand it psychologically like this, you will see right through it. Right through the lie. And when you see right through the lie that you're a sinner, you will run. You will, in other words, not run in fear. You will leave that space shaking your head saying, how could I have bought the con? And the reason you bought the con is because you were put into fear. You were put into a ceaselessly circulating dialogue, which has you as subservient at the end of it. Prostrate, on your knees, asking permission, seeking approval, and expecting reproof. The mindset of a slave. The mindset of a slave, because a slave is constantly asking permission. What is the Christian doing? Constantly asking permission from Jesus. Constantly. The person can't think for themselves. They have to get advice because they're a sinner. They can't be trusted. Bad psychology. Bad psychology. Christianity has no interest in people thinking spiritually for themselves because the Bible has no trust for sinners. Can you see the lack of development this inevitably fosters? Circular dialogues like the sin and atonement dialectic keep the Christian subjected to being a sinner, submitting to God, serving the body, and bound by theology.
There's a Hegelian master-slave dialectic at work in human history, and that the masters in that dialectic have so raised themselves above the common lot of humanity that they appear as angels or celestial beings or whatever, and that they've used that mask in order to keep us inside regressive belief systems and to render us useful to them.
Yes.
So, okay, we have to look.
And what do you see people doing? They give their money to the church. They volunteer their time to go volunteer at the church. You're being extracted. You're being used. This is an illicit institution. It is
Get the details of various cases if we want to get at who these people are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how their society came about and how this power structure was developed in the first place.
Are these humans with psi abilities, or are they beings from elsewhere, or what? Who are they?
So let's briefly, again, you've done like a plethora of interviews going into specific cases, so we don't want to get too bogged down, in the nitty-gritty of cases here, but it's important to refer to a few empirical cases here. So Ingo Swann,
Mm-hmm.
in the 1970s into the 1980s, did remote viewings of both the moon and of Mars.
Mm-hmm.
In the 1970s, he was taken from out of the SRI program that eventually became Stargate and Grill Flame and whatever. He was taken from out of that into some other black unit, which, he never learned what the name of it was. Some guy who identified himself as Axelrod took him like blindfolded by helicopter into some facility. And he was asked to remote view this target, of course, which he was blind to. It turned out that the target was the moon. And now, bear in mind just, that at this point we had detailed satellite reconnaissance photography of the moon. An important case in this regard is the testimony of Carl Wolf. Carl Wolf he was a photographic repair expert, and at that time sergeant in the early 1960s, leading up to the Apollo missions. And at one point, he was brought to what he thought was an NSA facility, because he thought was a NASA facility, because he'd never heard of the NSA. A lot of Americans hadn't. It turned out it was an NSA facility that was processing lunar orbiter reconnaissance photos. And Carl Wolf, long story short, he says he, in the course of repairing this machine, was shown mosaic photographs of a huge megalithic city on the dark side of the moon.
So I searched and searched and searched for those pictures, and I found them. So this is what's being referred. These are huge forms, buildings, you could call them, I guess, masses that support the idea that a lot of people have testified that there's actually an ongoing slave colony working on the moon. And these are some pictures that I found of them, of these supposed colonies. And I'm not saying 100% it's true or not true. I'm just saying this is the evidence that that points to
that
what
there was a city with largely polygonal architecture, Titanic scale structures, but they weren't made of metal and glass. They were made of something that, to him looked like poured stone, like concrete or something. And in fact, they reminded him of, megalithic architecture on the Earth. Now, back to Ingo Swann. So point being, if Carl Wolf saw mosaic photographs in the 1960s, Swann in the 70s is being tasked to remote view the moon by people who have access to these photographs. So I'm thinking
and
they
Carl
want
Wolf
him...
died a mysterious death after he...
Exactly. So, by the way, Carl Wolf, and this is horrible. These, So, I mean, what are we discussing? Disclosure and how disclosure could be manipulated. Well, just before this wave of so-called disclosure began, in 2017, 2018, poor Carl Wolf was run over just the way John Mack was run over, And I hardly think it's a coincidence, because he would definitely have been one of the people subpoenaed to testify.
Mhm.
And what Carl Wolf had to say is something that whoever's gatekeeping this whole disclosure business does not want out there in the public. In any case, Ingo Swann in the 1970s, when he was remote viewing what was on the moon, was dealing with people who had access to these photographs. And I think what they wanted was for him to snoop around on the ground, as it were, get a ground's eye view of this city on the dark side of the moon. And here's what he saw there. He saw tall Nordic people, statuesque Nordic people, who gave him a look like, you don't belong here, get the fuck out of here and don't come back. And he saw these same people lording over basically armies of slave laborers who he said were naked, meaning that they're probably under some kind of a dome that we can't see, transparent dome or something. And they were living in these like ramshackle, like makeshift shelters under appalling conditions, conducting slave labor on the moon. Swann also remote viewed Mars in the early 80s. And he said these same people who he had seen on the moon were responsible for a civilization, the ruins of which he viewed on Mars. There were very large, like honeycombed cities, which he said showed evidence of explosions, internal explosions. Like, he said he had the impression that a battle had taken place there.
What's funny you say that. There's a PhD physics who's I think he worked at Sandia or Los Alamos, and also Lawrence Livermore. His name is John Brandenburg, and he says that xenon 129 and argon 40 exist in excess of what you would ever expect just from natural radioactive isotope decay, and that proves that there was actually some nuclear holocaust on Mars.
Well, they found a large amount of xenon 129, which is the product of two things. Supernova explosions and hydrogen bomb explosions. And we know there was no supernova on Mars. If there was, there wouldn't be a solar system here.
And you said there was one other argon?
There was when you irradiate rocks that have potassium in them, and all rocks do, they produce a isotope called argon 40, and that's super abundant on Mars. So you have two things that are products of what look like an intense nuclear reaction on Mars in the atmosphere.
Yeah, I spent several days with Dr. Brandenburg in New Mexico, and I put this in Closer Encounters, this research of Dr. Brandenburg, that basically the deviation from normal of the isotopic ratio of xenon 129 in Cydonia specifically, where we have photographic evidence of ruins on Mars, the xenon 129 isotopic signature at Cydonia, he has discovered, is only matched by thermonuclear test sites on the Earth. It's the only other place in the solar system where we see that kind of signature. And he came to that conclusion when he was working at Sandia Labs, which is where nuclear weapons research takes place in the United States. Okay, so there's evidence that some kind of a nuclear confrontation took place on Mars. And by the way,
and Carl Sagan called him and said, "Hey John, why are you causing so much trouble?"
Yeah.
I found that very interesting. Carl Sagan, who held definitely security clearances and knew more than
I'm pretty convinced Sagan was a member of Majestic.
That would make sense to me. Yeah. Because he sort of flipped to he was very interested in UFOs. We know, earnestly interested growing up. His mentor, he would have debates,
the book he wrote was Shklovsky, the Soviet scientist. He co-wrote Intelligent Life in the Universe. And Sagan himself at that point was saying, we should look at ancient myths and check the archaeological and historical record for contact and so on and so forth.
There you go.
And then all of a sudden...
And he had a security clearance, I think project, was it A119, I think in the late 50s, where they were considering nuking the moon as a show of force against the Soviets. And he had a security clearance through the Air Force through that. And then it was interesting. He sort of flipped into anti-UFO mode and like almost official priestly citadel spokesman of the American scientific community, right as J. Allen Hynek moved from, rationalizing, explaining everything away via Project Blue Book, the official Air Force fake program into more openness. So
Yeah.
like it was like kind of late 60s, early 70s. It's kind of this interesting kind of, thing.
And he was the right age by that point to be recruited into such an organization, In any case, Brandenburg came to the conclusion that something like an Empire State building's worth of nuclear weapons had been detonated to produce that kind of a deviation of xenon-129 isotope at Cydonia. But so Swan saw evidence of this on the ground, okay, like a devastated civilization. And he said it was the same people who he saw on the moon as basically slave drivers. Now, unbeknownst to Swan, and by the way, when Swan remote viewed Mars, he worked with a team of, I believe, 5 other remote viewers, and they were all, they did it independently, right? And they're all blind to the target. But unbeknownst to that whole team led by Ingo Swan, in 1984, I think it was the same year, in 1984, Joe McMoneagle at the Monroe Institute did a remote viewing of Mars for the CIA. And
really? I thought it was in the 90s.
No,
really?
1984.
1984.
Yeah, go look it up. The paper's available now. It's been declassified.
Wow.
You can read the whole report.
Yeah.
It's been declassified by the CIA.
Yeah.
And it's 1984. I believe the title is Mars 1 million BC.
Yeah.
And because initially they say to him, go to Mars like 1 million BC. That's what's in the envelope, right? But what he said to them was, when McMoneagle wound up there, he said, oh, it's all in ruins. It's there were people once here. I see like ghosts of people who once were, but they're not here anymore.
I saw people who were 12 to 14 feet tall.
So then yes. So they said to him, okay, well, if it's devastated and the people aren't around anymore, go back to when they were around.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he never reports on how far back that was. He just goes mentally to when they still had a civilization.
So they go back to 1 million and there's some recent ruins, and then he goes back further.
Exactly.
And he sees the people.
Exactly.
Now, okay.
These people are the same again as Swan saw. Very tall, sort of Nordic people, very broad-shouldered people, not an ounce of body fat. They're wearing these skin-tight clothes, that reveal every contour of every muscle. And he says some very interesting things about their worldview, their outlook, and their dying civilization. But what's most interesting is this. He says that a group of them were sent out in a craft to go scout out a new world that they could possibly develop as a habitation for themselves, because Mars was no longer a planet on which they could survive, right? And this scout ship runs into a planet where there are constant electrical storms. There's a tremendous amount of volcanic activity. It's the opposite of Mars, but in a way that's also difficult to support human life. In other words, it's overgrown with vegetation, right? It's an incredibly volatile but living planet. And they're like, we can't live in this planet under these conditions. We would have to modify this planet to live there.
Now, this is extremely important. This is extremely important because this goes into clues as to why we have a moon, why it's the shape that it is, why it doesn't rotate and stays facing the Earth at all times, why it's the exact size necessary to cause lunar eclipse, and so on and so forth. There is some real logic in what he's going to present here in the last few minutes. And this is going to pull a lot of things together for a number of you probably that have been wondering about this kind of subject. This is incredible.
There. And so I suspect that what's going on there is the scouting out of a primordial Earth by people from Mars. Which then brings us to the question of the moon, and what the moon is, right? I mean, so we've got Carl Wolf telling us there's a city on the dark side of the moon. We've got Ingo Swan having done remote viewing that confirms that. But I think that the situation with the moon is actually a lot more disturbing than there simply being, a city-sized alien base on the backside of the base on the backside of the moon. You look at the geometry and the mathematics of the moon in relation to the Earth and the sun. It makes no sense. The moon is 1/400th the distance between the Earth and the sun, and it's 1/400th the size of the sun. And so that creates these perfect eclipses that we see, right? That by itself is very odd. And then you look at the fact that the craters on the moon are all only a few miles deep. You never find a crater on the moon that's more than 5 or 6 miles deep. But some of these craters are like 186 miles wide, right? So, and at the, the base of the largest craters, you see a convex surface. In other words, it looks nothing like the Grand Canyon or the Valles Marineris on Mars, where an asteroid would hit it and you'd see a deep gouge that should be proportionally as deep as it is wide. No. What you're seeing, apparently, is a hard shell that's being revealed through the impact against the regolith by whatever object. The ejecta is going 186 miles out in every direction, but there's never a crater deeper than a few miles, and what's being revealed there at the crater base is a hard convex surface. Then there's the impact. One of them was a test, one of them was accidental. The first one, I think part of an Apollo lander hit the moon, and there was a seismograph that had already been positioned there, and it registered basically the seismic signature that you would face if you were measuring a hollow object. That basically the reverberations went down for about 20 miles, and then they stop. And the way that the reverberation was distributed throughout the moon suggested that, as the observers, put it, it rang like a bell. And so then they repeated this test deliberately a second time. I think it was in Apollo 13. And this time they hit it with a more significant impact. And this kind of seismic signature was observed for 3 hours. The moon basically ringing like a hollow object for 3 hours. So there's all this evidence that the moon is an artificial satellite. And setting this in the context of Joe McMonagle's remote viewing of Mars, what I argue in Closer Encounters is that the people on Mars probably constructed the moon for two purposes. One, as a very large-scale transport of a significant population from Mars to the orbit of the Earth. And two, as a terraforming device to radically alter the ecological situation of the planet.
This goes, it's going to show right here because the bell's about to ring. Okay, he is pointing at the stuff we covered in Ethical Skeptics post about the Earth every few thousand years doing this tilt swing, where it not only tilts on its axis, but it switches its rotation. And so with that going on all the time, meaning every couple thousand years, you're basically just wiping out the Earth, and it just keeps rebuilding. And this is where you're going to get what we see in the historical record, which is all kinds of evidence of cataclysms. Now, this follows directly in line with what I stated earlier without ever hearing this guy. And it was my theory that the Earth or the moon was put where it is on the Earth and made not to spin and so on and so forth to stabilize the planet. Because the fact of the matter is, and I'll show you guys here the maps, I went back and got them from Ethical Skeptic. It's going to show it here a sec. Okay, the fact of the matter is, the way that the Earth's core is set up, it's oblong. Like right now, the core down in the Earth is off center. So it has a wobble to it, and it causes the Earth to flip like its electromagnetic impulse every few thousand years. And it causes this cataclysm that he is just talking about in his theory, where you would have people from Mars coming here and looking at the Earth and saying, there's no way we could live here, because in another few hundred years or 1,000 years, whatever, the whole darn thing's going to change on its axis again. And it's going to keep doing this flipping. And like he's saying, is these electrical storms and so forth that are happening on this planet. And so they brought, in his opinion, this is the effect here. It's like a wingnut, the Earth. And when the Earth spins, it has this wingnuts effect where it will switch from one direction to the other while also changing its spin resonance. And see, what this is showing you is evidence that supports not only Ethical Skeptics' theory, which shows that the Earth is oblong like a wingnut, but it also secures the theory I had, which was that the moon was brought in to stabilize and stop the Earth. Here's the key thing: stop the Earth from continuing to do these flips. Did it work? Did it work? I mean, look, here's the flip. And the magma in the earth matches so that it should do this kind of thing. Changing its axial tilt and orbit.
For two purposes. One, as a very large-scale transport of a significant population from Mars to the orbit of the Earth. And two, as a terraforming device. To radically alter the ecological situation of the planet so as to make it habitable for humans, right? They said there were these horrendous constant electrical storms and volcanic eruptions and so on and so forth. Well, you know, the Earth spun a lot faster before if the moon had not been in orbit at some point, we would have been dealing with a planet that was a lot more unstable, spinning much faster, prone to toppling over. The moon acts as a tremendous stabilizer for the Earth. By the way, that's another thing about the moon, is that it has a unusually stable orbit as compared to the moons around other planets, as if there's a stabilizer inside of it. So I think it was created to transport a large population, and it was used as a terraforming device.
Okay, that's it for this week on that video. Here, remove. So what do you think? Interesting concept, isn't it? Because it falls right in line with the science of ethical skeptic, and it falls right in line with the idea of the moon stabilizing the Earth. It falls right in line with Bruce, what was his name? Fenton's theory, where he talked about the viewers that went 800,000 years into the past, and they saw these cataclysms happening on the Earth. They saw the whole soul entrapment thing being set up. They saw that the Earth was at war, and he describes the war, and he talks about the tactics. What are they? The tactics, the metal balls that he talks about in his lecture that show from just looking at them and from testing them that they came from the atmosphere, cooled, and then struck the Earth. And this idea of going and exploring this Earth, trying to figure out if it's habitable and adjusting things so that it can be habitable, because we have a population that's been destroyed, and we see the leftovers of that on Mars. These theories are all gelling, folks. They're all gelling. Bruce's theory, ethical skeptics theory, and Jesse's theory here are all gelling, meaning they make sense if you put them together in this timeline. It really makes a lot of sense. And so I just wanted to throw this stuff at you guys to see what you thought. And I think what I'm going to do here is jump right here. Instead of going to comments, I'm going to finish up the lecture for tonight, because we've got just about 10 slides to read for the lecture. Get through this subject, then we can keep moving on. But I really hope you guys like that. Now let's look at this week's presentation. This is obviously Chat and Rosicrucianism 10. And today we are looking at the soul's progress, and we will get through the whole thing today. We've got about 10 or 12 slides here, and we're going to get right through it. We're also going to talk about the monad. So let's get started on the slide, and then I'll get to comments when we're done. The soul's progress elaborates on the Rosicrucian teaching that human evolution extends beyond Earth to a chain of 7 planets. And see how it all ties in together, folks. Interconnected by subtle etheric forces, individual souls progress through this planetary chain on a spiral pattern, not merely circling from lower to higher planets, but advancing to higher planes of activity with each cycle. This is Rosicrucianism. The Earth is relatively low in this chain, with souls reincarnating multiple times on each planet, progressing from lower to higher forms of life. The developmental process involves monads, moving through mineral, vegetable, animal, and human stages across planets, with each kingdom completing multiple cycles before advancing. I'm often asked, Chuck, what is a monad? Here's the basics. A Higgs boson. To understand a monad, we're going to compare it and contrast it to the Higgs boson. A Higgs boson is a purely theoretical field of energy that underlies all of matter. There to the right, what is the Higgs boson in simple terms? The Higgs boson is the fundamental particle. Pro tip, a particle is a field of energy associated with the Higgs field. A field that gives mass, a field that gives mass to other fundamental particles such as electrons and quarks. Okay, so your base scientific notion is that everything's coming out of these Higgs bosons, which model directly in the metaphoric sense with the monad. So a Higgs boson is a purely theoretical field of energy that underlies matter. A monad is a purely theoretical field of consciousness that underlies the ether. Do you see the context? Do you see the relationship? The monad is to ether what a Higgs boson is to matter. Matter is to crystallized energy what a monad is to consciousness. And the point I'm attempting to make here is that consciousness forms out of the monads, which are part and parcel of the ether. And in the same pattern, nature works in patterns. And in the same pattern, we have the Higgs boson, a form of energy. And it underlies the electrons, the protons, the basics for 3D reality. So we have the monad underlying the basics for the spiritual reality, and we have the boson underlying the basics of conventional scientific reality. You see? Next. The energy contained in the ether of a coffee cup could boil off the world's oceans. In other words, there's a tremendous amount of energy in monads. Leibniz claimed that monads are a direct result of movements of consciousness. That is to say, consciousness creates waves of energy, and we know this. These combine with other like waves. Upon critical mass, these combinations of consciousness waves crystallize and form physical reality, events in time, and matter in space. We are getting to the fundamental principles here, friends. The more intense the movements of consciousness and the greater number of monads there are, the higher likelihood they will manifest into physical reality. And this follows the pattern of nature right here in these gentlemen's theories, Bruce Lipton's epigenetics. We become what we think. What we think determines action. In other words, the compression of thought becomes action. You follow? The compression of thought, of repeating the thought, brings about action. I become what I believe. Rupert Sheldrake's morphogeneticist, nature renders novelty through habits. Truth is found in patterns. And I just rendered that to you. I'll go here. And I just rendered that to you in showing that the Higgs boson is the basic of the material world, the horizontal line on the cross, right? And the monad is the basic of the spiritual, the ether, the vertical line. You compress these two things, they form reality. They bring about wonder and magic, like we've been talking about, and falls right into the theories I've been handing you guys. And then here, Terence McKenna's credo, nature loves courage, risk scales consciousness. And why is there a great awakening? Because people right now are risking higher and higher consciousness. We are following the pattern of the monad. We are following the pattern of the boson. We are building in our consciousness, which is compressing knowledge, compressing wisdom, and it is bringing about a different world. Bringing about a different world. In the same way, the boson is attracting energy forms to bring about a 3D reality. The same thing is happening with the monad and the spiritual reality, and we are part and parcel of that pattern. And it is through patterns that we find truth. This is why the monad is so important. The ether medium or matrix potential flows as a whole. It is composed of ether strata, which is individuated monads. Ether can be thought of as consciousness layers composed of the unspeakable monad. This is beautiful concepts for you guys. After the waves of potential ether have built up to reach critical mass, they begin to effectuate physical reality through vortex geometry. And what does this emphasize? From the ineffable comes the effable. From chaos comes the sacred. In other words, now you see it, now you don't. It's following the same patterns. Leibniz believed that there were no interactions between different monads, but everything is regulated by pre-established harmony. And that is why, or that is the Tao, because nature is of itself so. That's why it self-regulates and it doesn't need a master or an owner. monad, infinity, and enigma, individuated consciousness that reunites. And by the way, folks, this is all from my nature series. If you guys want to see the long version of what I'm talking about right now, watch my nature series. I talk about the monad, especially in part 3. If you watch my nature series, I go into all this in depth if you don't want the fast run like I'm giving you now. It is all thought, the monad is all thought, yet is unspeakable. Aum. You see the pattern? Monads are to ether what ions are to plasma. Ether is to liberated monads. Plasma is liberated ions. Do you see? This is the truth. Nature renders itself to you in patterns, the truth. If you want to understand nature and the universe, follow its patterns. Follow its patterns. And we are talking about the fundamentals right now. And this is the patterns that the fundamental follows, which is the same as you, because you're a nature creature. Ether is the receptacle of which Plato speaks. Ether is the vessel, the process of creation, which individualizes consciousness and that which reunites consciousness. Here, which is a feature of a receptacle according to Plato? According to Plato, which is a feature of a receptacle? It is where things appear and perish, right? Where things appear and perish. And what have I said to you so many times? We are in a now you see it, now you don't universe. We are in a place where wonder appears and perishes. There is good and there is evil. These concepts follow the exact same concepts I have been sharing with you guys for years now. And you guys are starting to see with the testimonies that I am providing you that we were on the right track. We were on the right track. We are on the right track in understanding these principles, this secret knowledge, this occulted knowledge, esoterica, which the controllers have been trying to keep from you from the very beginning. And right now in these lectures and right now in these testimonies, we are uncovering what they have been keeping from you. They don't want you to know these things. Monads are consciousness wholes in the same way matter is crystallized ether. Just as nature is a caricature of God, follow. Monads are a caricature of the ether. Do you follow that? Just as nature is a caricature of God, monads are a caricature of the ether. In the same way, the boson is a caricature of the material reality. It is what composes the continuum reality as we experience it. Do you see? This is so good. You guys are going to understand this stuff so well. I love it. Okay, the 5th to 6th round. On Earth, the human race is in its 5th round of development, comprising 7 root races, each with 7 sub-races and branches. In the historical progression, they're talking about races meaning the human race. In the historical progression through the first 5 races, we're in the 5th right now. Humans will culminate to the 6th race. Isn't this interesting that the Rosicrucianists figured this out in the Middle Ages? Right here. Humans will culminate to the 6th race. What is about to happen? What is about to happen? Consciousness expansion. What's that going to cause? The human race, our 5th round here, is going to end. And we're going to the 6th round. We are entering the phase of the demigods. Why? Because our consciousness is raising up. Things like I'm telling you right now, this secret knowledge that you were to never know. This is what fosters you to the 6th race. This right here, this information, which in my opinion is why we are going to live a very long time. It's in my opinion, they're going to get this medical thing straightened out. They're going to change our DNA and we are going to extend for 1,000 years. This is the new beginning, folks, in my opinion. We have reached the moment of truth. We have here. With DNA remnants of earlier races like the Lemurians and Atlanteans surviving as the elect who seed new civilizations, what is happening now exactly? What are we doing right now? You, me, and this group. We are seeding a new civilization. Any truther out there that is in touch with the truth, that is in touch with the patterns, the deeper emphasis, the Great Awakening, will see this and will begin to share with others this, what I'm sharing with you. Why? Because it awakens you. It awakens you. It awakens you. And what brings about the next race, the sixth phase? Awakening. Awakening. Exactly what's happening. That's why there's no need to be a doomer. Cataclysms mark the transition between races, preserving a few survivors and advanced souls who guide the next round. Rosicrucians believe that there will be a sixth and seventh round where humanity will develop heightened spiritual, intellectual capacities, eventually becoming godlike demigods, with some individuals already achieving demigod consciousness through occult training. And what are we doing right here, right now on my show? We are doing occult training. That's what we're doing. We are uncovering that which has always been hidden from you to awaken you so that you can liberate yourself, right? That's the point. Liberation. Liberation. The soul's journey through the planetary chain. Individual souls reincarnate multiple times on Earth and progress to the next highest planet in the chain. This is all metaphor, folks. Understand, this is all metaphor. Having come from a lower one in past ages, completing multiple rounds around the chain. This is development. The planets vary significantly in composition and sense, with Earth being relatively low in the developmental scale. Remember when I said, and I didn't even know about Rosicrucianism when I predicted this, but remember when I said that the Earth is a nursery? Remember when I said that? It's a beginning field for your soul, your subconscious. It's the initiation field. That's why the Earth is so hard, meaning you have to endure. It's tough. You have to endure a lot of challenges. It requires a tremendous amount of growth to transcend it, and it will not let you go, meaning you're not leaving here until you transcend. In other words, you determine when you leave. Not fate, not random nature. You determine when you leave. You determine when you are no longer have to come back to the Earth to keep learning your lessons. You actually take the time to learn them. You actually take the time to learn them, which is why it's important to live a long time. The soul's journey is spiral, not circular, returning to the starting point on a higher plane of activity, reflecting progressive evolution each life. Fantastic, baby. Here we go. Next round. The evolution of life forms across planets. This is the evolution of life. The spiral character of evolution accounts for gaps in Earth's life forms as life impulses, spiritual monads, move from planet to planet. This is flow. Animal level monads complete their animal incarnations on Earth, then move to other planets, returning as human-ready monads down the road, eliminating the need for animal to human evolution on Earth. In earlier times, when no human forms existed, spiritual monads' onward pressure provoked, remember what I said, it fosters, provoked the evolution of higher animal forms into human forms, creating the missing link through bursts of spiritual impulses. Impulses could be seen as genetic manipulations. Could it possibly be? Could it possibly be that the genetic manipulations that have been done to us, which were meant for evil, are going to result in something good? Where have you heard that before? That's in not only biblical narratives, but ancient pagan narratives, where a cataclysm, something evil, something terrible, brings about goodness, brings about such a transformational change that the darkness recedes and the good aspect comes forward. And what better picture than right here in the development of human beings? It just might be that our genetic manipulation was necessary for us to develop our consciousness. And this is a way to begin to change your feelings, opinion, anxiety about being genetically modified. By seeing a deeper principle, a higher knowledge to help you understand, you know what, that might have been necessary for me to get to the place I am now. Just like that terrible event that happened to me 20 years ago or whatever, meaning you and me, the terrible things that happened to us many decades ago, we are now the people that we are because of those terrible things that happened to us. and we are better people because we have learned from those terrible things that happened to us. And our gene manipulation, mentioned right here in Rosicrucianism, the missing link, our gene manipulation could very well be an essential component so that you can begin to change your attitude about how you see yourself. And instead of seeing these genetic modifications as some abomination, but seeing those genetic modifications as maybe being necessary for us to develop into the creatures that we are today on the cusp of a great awakening. There's a better way to skin the apple, I'll tell you. There's a better way. Rosicrucians seem to see development as more magical process than scientific or pragmatic one, which is a good idea in my opinion. Next slide. Mechanics of progression. Like your heartbeat, life impulses move in rushes or gushes, not constant flow. Have you noticed that about life? It happens in surges. It happens in surges. It gushes, right? Not constant flow. Likened to water subsequently filling a series of tubs, planet A, B, C, etc., overflowing one to the next when full. You guys can picture that in your mind, I'm sure. Mineral impulse on planet A overflows to B. And look at how that follows the idea of Mars coming to Earth, of the people there. Look at how it follows that. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it's interesting that it's this similar pattern. On planet A overflows to B when vegetable development begins, then to C when animal development starts, and so on. Rosicrucianism suggests that development is an extremely refined series of events organized by a geometric pattern known as sacred geometry. That's easy to follow. You guys know this. Human impulse emerges after multiple hundreds, possibly thousands of life cycles of mineral, vegetable, and animal impulses circumnavigate the pattern. Each kingdom, mineral, vegetable, animal, and human, consists of spiral layers. Think of your DNA. Think of sacred geometry, spiral layers, the monads cycling many, many, many times as minerals, then vegetables, then animals, before finally reaching human consciousness as consciousness develops into I am I. And what has happened to you? You're a physical body here that has realized in this mind, which doesn't exist, that I am I. That's not something that a dog does. That's not something that a cat does. That's something that a human does. A human recognizes they are not the eyes that are seeing the world that is observed. They are the essence that animates the mind, that animates the body. The essence, the soul, that's what you are. That's a deeper contemplation than any cat, dog, or bear can offer. Human consciousness is of a different sort. It's similar in many ways to the animal world. I get it, respect it. Totally respect it. It's similar in many ways to the plant world. Heck, the sunflower follows the sun. We have similar consciousness. We're attracted to light. Nothing wrong with that. But the point being, and it's beautiful, that pattern, the point being that our consciousness is of a different sort. It's more complicated. It's larger than what we observe around us on the planet. I'm not saying better or worse. I'm saying different. Different. Okay? And this Rosicrucianism stuff falls right in line with that idea. Okay, next slide. Human race progression on Earth. Human life progresses in great waves or rounds around the planetary chain, with each round involving 7 races on Earth, each subdivided into 7 sub-races and 7 branches. The current human race is in the 5th round, with most individuals in the 5th race, though some stragglers from the 4th race remain, and obviously there are some folks that have already transcended, the light bringers, those who have a higher awareness and consciousness than the average Joe. These people are also helping to bring about and usher in higher consciousness to bring about the Great Awakening, exactly as I have been telling you guys, exactly as I have been saying for years now. None of these disciplines, none of these people are contradicting what we have been talking about. Racial cycles and cataclysm. Each great root race is separated by cataclysms, geological upheavals that destroy most traces of prior civilizations, leaving few survivors. A quoted writer notes that continents shift with each race, and that would be true. I mean, think about it. If our pole is shifting and the Earth is changing direction of its spin, you are going to have continental drift in a big way. And we see that on the Earth. A quoted writer notes that continents shift with each race. The third race flourished on Lemuria, now beneath the Pacific and Indian Ocean, with remnants like Australia, which follows the idea that the Earth was still spinning on its tilt and changing directions just a few thousand years ago, meaning a few tens of thousands of years ago. Because we have evidences of the cataclysms, do we not? We have evidences of the floods. We have evidences of great upheavals. Do you see? Do you see? We are coming out of that situation. We have learned from it, and we are emerging from it. The fourth race lived on Atlantis, now under the Atlantic Ocean, with remnants like Cuba and the West Indies. 7 such cataclysms occur during one round, each marking the end of the race. This is so freaking good. First and second races, low order humanity. This is just a quick description. Low order humanity, akin to cave dwellers, Stone Age people, or fire people with minimal civilization. The second race ended with a cataclysm, but a few advanced souls acted as leaven for the third race. The third race, Lemurians, centered in Lemuria, focused on physical senses and sensual enjoyment, with few souls reaching mental and spiritual planes. Probably because they're obsessed with the physical sensual. A few advanced souls, saved from the cataclysm, migrated to islands, becoming occult teachers for the fourth race. Do you happen to see a pattern going on here? Do you see the pattern? A cataclysm, a special authority or some authority comes forward, teaches who has survived the cataclysm, basic technology, and they have huge advances for a number of years, maybe a few hundred, maybe a few thousand. Then another cataclysm comes in. You got another higher race that steps in, begins to train the folks that have survived, and on and on and on the pattern goes. And it seems that that has been the pattern that we have been on, which is why we see so much evidences of higher races before us, meaning higher thinking, making the pyramids of Giza, making these walls that don't require concrete, that stand for thousands of years. We don't even have that technology. This set of patterns here, elucidated by Rosicrucianism, as well as Jesse and his interviewee, we're seeing this emerge, the similar pattern between all of these different events. And it's all making sense. This is the dark knowledge you were to never know. Next slide, historical development of races. The fourth race, Atlanteans, achieved remarkable civilization, surpassing modern achievements in mechanics and electricity, guided by the elect from Lemuria. Atlantis collapsed due to misuse of occult powers, black magic, with the continent shrinking gradually over 10,000 years. Advanced souls migrated to South and Central America, leaving traces of high culture, now remembered as gods in mythology. Where do you think the Greeks got all their gods? The advanced people that were coming out of Lemuria that were helping to form Atlantis became legendary. And they wrote stories and myths about them to help folks understand this incredibly diabolically difficult position that we all have been in on this planet. This is fantastic stuff, guys. Historical development of races, the fifth race. This is us. The fifth race has evolved rapidly due to the urge of Atlantean souls seeking rebirth with high fertility rates. Rebirths include both primitive descendants of survivors and advanced descendants. This would mark why some people are more gifted than others of the elect. Ancient Egyptians, Persians, Chaldeans, Hindus, Assyrians, Babylonians, Romans, and Greeks. The elect descendants imparted advanced knowledge which shaped early human civilization development and was eventually perverted. How many times have we talked about the perversion of the world? How many times have I used the word perverted? Seriously. Rosicrucian theory aligns nicely with the advanced buildings found here on Earth that clearly predate the primitive societies suggested by science to have built them. You see? They obviously didn't. We can't even build a pyramid today that can match the cut quality required to make another Giza. It seems the more advanced races were infiltrated. Here's the capture. Were infiltrated by a hibernating parasite that took form as a mafia that spawned in Cana and eventually took over the planet like a cancerous malignancy takes over the body. Remember, nature flows through patterns, and we've studied all that stuff. No need to go back over it. I got 3 sides left and we're done. The soul's progress, and then I'm going to chat. I got 1,000 comments. Dr. William Draper likened nations to individuals. They follow a determinate path of infancy, youth, maturity, and decline, driven by inexorable fate, despite apparent choices otherwise. What have I said to you? Life happens to people. Life happens to people. That's exactly what this Rosicrucian doctrine is saying. Nations rise and fall due to cosmic forces, with rulers and statesmen as puppets of destiny. Caesar, Alexander, Napoleon. Less advanced souls remain as nations decline, while advanced souls move to new scenes. That's what we're going to do. Heck yeah. Current events reflect these cosmic forces in play, with future historians recognizing their impact through, though contemporaries may not see the larger development and process. And that, hey, isn't that what's happening? People don't see the larger development and process, so they get caught up in one individual that they hate in government, or they get caught up in one scientist, or they get caught up with one doctor. You see, because of what is happening right now, right there. Current events reflect these cosmic forces in play, with future historians recognizing their impact through contemporaries, though contemporaries may not see the larger development and process. And it's the folks that are caught up with their icons that don't see the larger development, because they're micro-focused on the icon, their religion, their medicine, their government. Do you see? And that micro-focus shrinks the mind, shrinks consciousness, and keeps growth and development from occurring. This stuff is falling right in line with what we've been talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Next, second to last, future rounds in spiritual evolution. At the midpoint of the 5th round, the spiritual ego begins its struggle to manifest transcendental powers. What's happening to you right now? What's happening to you right now? Right here. The spiritual ego begins to struggle to manifest transcendental powers. How do we release from anxiety? We let go. We let go. And this is how we begin to manifest transcendental powers, by letting go of the old way, by letting go of the old religions, by letting go of the old gods and icons, freeing yourself, liberating yourself. That's what they're talking about here. It's fantastic. In the 6th round, these faculties develop, but the struggle with physical intellect intensifies. Don't you guys feel it? Don't you guys feel the intensity coming? It's on us. In the 7th round, humanity achieves perfection in body, soul, and intellect and spirituality, far beyond current imagination. It is too godlike to describe. Our future is bright with promise, also known as development and growth. We can't even conceptualize round 7, but we certainly can round 6, where we're going. And now, our put it in your pipe and smoke it moment. Are you ready? Consciousness. Grab your joints, grab your pipes, grab your cigarettes, grab your cigars, grab it and start smoking. Here we go. Consciousness is like a balloon. Follow now. Consciousness is like a balloon. It expands as a development of time and pressure. This comes from Shawshank Redemption. How does a man change? Under time and pressure. Apply more and more inner pressure to a balloon or consciousness over time. It will expand. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional because this hits home. For the balloon, air provides the pressure. For the mind, anxiety builds the necessary pressure. What is anxiety? Fire. Fire. Pushing in on you and demanding change. That's pressure. And if you have enough of that over time, guess what happens? You change. You succumb. You succumb to the pressure. And what better teacher is there than nature? What better teacher? There is no better teacher than nature. And how does nature teach? Nature teaches through pain. Pressure. The question then becomes, how much time and pressure can be withstood before bursting? And this is the question right now for the Great Awakening. How much can we take? How much can you take? How much chaos, how much pressure can you take? That will determine your transcendent level. The more pressure you can take, the higher you will transcend. The higher you will transcend. That's the way it works, because nature is a meriting system. And you guys know that. The greater the pressure, And the longer the time withstood, the larger the balloon and the larger the consciousness. And what are we trying to do right now on Earth? To build our consciousness. Pain in the mind, like air in the balloon, is the fire nature uses to develop consciousness. So the formula for higher awareness in 3D reality is pain plus time times pressure equals consciousness. The soul has a similar course of refinement to follow, since its head is awareness. But what I want you to get more than anything is that little formula right there. Pain plus time times pressure equals consciousness. And this is what we want, is it not? We want higher and higher consciousness. So guess what? You're going to have to endure what it takes to realize that higher consciousness. You must let go, my friend. And how hard is it for the Islamist who was raised in Islam and is now 75 years old and has been praying to Allah 5 times a day for 70 years? How hard is it? How hard is it going to be for that person to let go of Allah? How hard is it going to be for the Christian who's been praying to Jesus every single morning since they were 4 years old? How hard is it going to be for them to let go of Jesus? Pretty hard. But unfortunately, your consciousness is on a leverage system, and it is leveraged by the faith and by the risk you take. And if you are in a belief system, you are the antithetical of faith, because belief is the opposite, is the antithesis of faith. And it's faith and it's pain that's going to determine your growth. So guess what you're going to have to do, my friend? You're going to have to let go of what you called faith, which is actually belief. You're going to have to let that go, right? And then you're going to have to endure the pain of change. Endure the pain of changing your mind, changing your focus, changing your behavior, which is hard to do. That's why it's hard to build muscles. That's why it's hard to lose fat, because those disciplines are completely merited and they take pain to realize. And your consciousness is no different. If you want a refined, muscular, strong, non-obese consciousness that is ready for action and ready to engage, well, guess what, my friend? You're going to have to change your eating habits, meaning what spiritual food are you eating? You have to change those habits. You have to change them. You're going to have to go to a different wellspring for your spiritual knowledge. You can't go to the same wellspring you've been going to your whole life. You got to abandon that. You got to leave that wellspring with faith, with courage, accepting the risk and ready to go, with an attitude that says, I'm ready and willing. I fear nothing. I fear nothing. And walk right into the space. Okay, brilliant. That's the lecture for the week, friends. Let's go to comments and see how you guys are doing. Okay, now since I have 1,000 new comments, I'm just going to go to the new comments, start at the beginning. Hey, Chuck, have you seen, here we go. Hi, Erwin. Hey, Chuck, have you seen some stone circles that appear across Africa? Yes, I have. And to you, are they linked to gold mining and Anunnakis? Abdu. No, I think those are resonation circles. If you're talking about the ones that, who's that gentleman in South Africa that Michael, what is his last name? Michael, oh, I can't remember his name. Michael, it's not Tsarian. It's another Michael. But anyways, he has done some really deep dive studies on those circles in Africa, and they harken back to the beginning of humankind. You should explore it. I'm not familiar enough with it to speak on it more so, but those circles, those stone circles you're talking about, that's what he is obsessed with, and he will tell you all about them. They have to do with consciousness expansion. Okay. Yes, exactly. This here. Yes, exactly, Stacy. Exactly, Stacy. Stop looking for everything to be answered outside of you and understand the answers are within you. Yes, courage. Exactly, Stacy. Thank you. Thank you, love. Yes. Thank you very much, Prospero. Thank you. Yes, Obi. I got your music. I thought I responded. I'll respond. I thought I responded. Was it the jazzy music that you sent me? Because it was like jazzy. The one that I listened to. It's cool. Here we go. When the student is ready, the teacher appears at Chuck Swindoll Jr. I love you, my brother. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. That's really kind of you to say. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, that's very true. That's very true. That was really kind of you, Melissa. Thank you so much. Sorry, I don't mean to get emotional. Sometimes these comments get to me. Awaken from deception. Adapt it or keep on egregore dogma. Exactly. One rule is golden. Do unto others as you would have others do it to you. Sure thing. That's basic compassion. Hi, King. Growth is often a solo job. We'll be reunited with others. Once shit kicks off, they're going to need our help. I love it. Yes, King. Yes, and that's why we're here. Esoteric, I love you. Thank you so much. Yes, Michael Tellinger. Thank you, Esoteric. Yes. So my friend, the one who asked this, here, look up Michael Tellinger. He will tell you all about those circles. He will tell you all about them. Brilliant. He is a good man. Michael is a good man. He is a good-hearted man. He is a good-hearted man. I still can't believe that comment, Melissa. Thank you so much. Tellinger, yeah. Twilight Mist, thank you so much, love. You're exactly right. That's it. Yes, they do have high vibration. Those guys are good guys. Thank you, James. I'm right here for you, brother. Yeah, you guys know. Look at you guys. You all knew. You all knew. My chat is king, man. My chat is awesome. You guys all knew Michael Tellinger. That's fantastic. Look at. You guys knew. It's fantastic. I love it. Yes. Yes, I'm right there with you, Gretchen. Let's go and grow. I hear it. Yes. Fantastic. If you said that, Stacy, thank you, love. I appreciate that very much. That was a very kind thing for someone to write me. I'll be thinking about that this week. Thank you. Set up shop first in South Africa. Tom, tell me about it, brother. I've watched Michael Tellinger, but he doesn't bring up the Anunnaki. Maybe he does. I've just forgotten. But that very well may be the case. They may have set up those resonation circles down in South Africa. They are an interesting study, though, I tell you. They are an interesting study. He took Tellinger, walked into one of these circles with like all this advanced equipment, and all the equipment shut off. All the equipment shut off. As soon as he crossed the threshold into one of these circles, he walked in with all his people. He couldn't get his video camera to work. He couldn't get his seismograph to work. He couldn't get any of his electronic instruments to work as soon as he walked in the circle. And as soon as he walked out of the circle, they all came back on again. Check out Michael Tellinger. You're welcome, Erwin. It's my pleasure. I love you too, friend. I care about you guys very much. Thank you, Fortune. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys are so kind to me. Thank you. Thank you. Here. Great one tonight. Thank you, Tides of Truth. I love Chariots of the Gods by Eric von Däniken as a boy. Set the seed for me to open my mind later. That's fantastic, Tides of Truth. I should check out that book. I haven't read it. Yeah, y'all will appreciate it. Thank you, Trey. Thank you, Trey. Y'all will appreciate it. Check him out. He's fantastic. Yeah, you're right, Tao. You are exactly right. You are exactly right, Tao. I know, probably too much. I need to contain my emotions. Here we go. Hi, Rims Gutters. Chuck, a OBE Darius Wright member, shared your KM series is where I found you a couple weeks ago. Dude, that's awesome. In my opinion, you are teaching human history, which is more important than doing your first OBE. Glad I found you. Dude, thank you so much, Rim. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. And don't forget, I'm on Rumble And if you like the KM series, there's 3 more videos on my Rumble that are not on YouTube because YouTube banned them. Because YouTube doesn't like us growing at all. Thank you, King. I appreciate that so much. I really do appreciate that. Thank you. Obi, thank you so much, friend. Thank you. Thank you so much, friend. Melissa, I love it. I love it, Melissa. I love it. Well, I'm glad you like it. I don't think people like it, but I'm glad you like it. I can't help it. I can't help it. Dude! You're kidding! Pablo, you guys are that's incredible, man. I am so honored, man. I cannot believe you would I cannot believe you've allowed your daughter to see me. I can't believe that. That's incredible. I mean, thank you so much. Thank you so much. You guys are incredible. Look at all these comments. I mean, this is incredible. This is incredible. Nice. Tellinger is doing a series on it now. Good. Good. Please let us know, Robert, what the name of that series is, please. Can you tell us what that series name is so we can all look it up? Fortune. Is a monad different from an E? Are you talking about energy? Different from an energy? It's a form of energy. I mentioned that in the slide, I think. Let's look here. Is a form of energy here. No, I was calling the boson a that's it. Under the particle, a particle is a field of energy. So yeah, I would consider the monad also a field of energy. In this way, it is identical to the boson. You see? Let's go back to comments here. I love you too, Gretchen. I love you too, Gretchen. You guys mean the world to me. Yeah, I couldn't either, Katie Cat. I'm right there with you. But thanks to the chat room, we finally found it. I love Mr. Miyagi. Yes. What an honor. Yes. I'd be happy to be Mr. Miyagi, man. Heck yeah. I thought Mr. Miyagi was great stuff. He is the dude. He is the dude. He is the dude. He is the dude. You're welcome, Janet. It's my honor, love. It's my honor. It's my honor. They're all manipulated, Obi. They're all manipulated, buddy. They're all manipulated. Doesn't matter which one. They're all manipulated. What is synonymous with the monad? Yes, that's the boson. The boson. Think of the boson as the opposite of the monad in a different realm. So you've got the boson in the 2D, 3D, and then the monad in the 4D and higher. And they're the same but different, the same but opposite. The concept of boson and monad fits exactly the idea of now you see it, now you don't, and we're in a dualistic world so that it's easier to understand. I'm not giving you the final finite definition. I'm saying they're similar. They have similar properties, similar metaphoric principles. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the one. That's what Michael's working on, the One Small Town. That's it. Yes, wax on, wax off. You got it, Stacy. Stacy, you're a comedian. You're funny. That's it. Wax on, wax off. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Melissa. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. I really appreciate that. You guys just mean a lot to me. You guys really mean a lot to me. Yes, we're all leading each other home, Future. You're exactly right. That's the quote from Ram Dass. We're all leading each other home. That's what we're doing. We're all leading each other home. There is no central figure. We all are leading each other home. We're all going together. You guys are incredible. You guys are incredible. This is incredible. Yeah, it could be true. Could be true, Twilight Mist. The reason why the technology will not work in those stone circles, at least not to what it used to, has to do with the life force reinforcing aspects of the circle creates. Yeah. Disrupted energy fields. And that is what, I don't know what you're going to see the rest of there. But yeah, you're on the right track there, Twilight Mist. You're on the right track. Okay, we got to finish up here. It's 8 o'clock. People have to go to bed. You work so hard for us, Chuck. Yes, I do, happily. And you are so heart-centered and walking in truth. Thank you, friend. Do not contain the emotions. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You guys are good people. You guys are very kind people. I'd love to meet you too, Tides of Truth. Would love to meet you too. Yeah, it is a special age, Tao. You're exactly right. It is a special age. It's a special age. Thank you, Dawn. That's very kind of you to say. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, he is. Manly P. Hall was an amazing man. You should read up on his work. He has some amazing lectures that are life-changing. And I have spent probably 400 or 500 hours listening to that man. I'm not saying he's right about everything. I'm not saying he has all the answers. I'm not saying he's a god. I'm just simply saying, yes, he has some great philosophies. He was masterful articulator. Masterful. If you hear his lectures, he was a master at articulating words and putting stuff together so that you can understand it. Definitely someone to look up to for sure. Okay. I'm not going to post that. That's so kind of you. Thank you so much. That's incredible. Thank you so much for your kindness. Yeah, for sure. I love you guys. We got to call it a night. I love you guys. It's after 8 o'clock. I'm a drooling, crying mess. Thanks to you guys and your love and care. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your kindness. Really, I really appreciate you guys. You guys are very kind to me. Thank you so much. I want to. I tried to have a get-together this last summer and nobody came. Which is funny. I still had a good time, but I tried and nobody showed up. So it's okay. It's fine. I'm here for the capacity of my audience. It didn't bother me at all. I'm here for the capacity you guys want and need. And it's totally fine that that's not the capacity that you guys wanted and needed this last summer. And that's great. I'm here with you. It doesn't matter. You guys, it's great. Everything's great. I'm addicted to chat. I have to stop. I mean, it just keeps going. I have to stop. Thank you so much, guys, so much for your very kind words and your incredible kindness to me. I absolutely cannot believe how kind you guys are to me. Thank you. I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you so much. I love you. I'm going to close things off with our Led Zeppelin awesomeness. And I will see you guys next week. Oh, and what we're going to study next week, because you guys have been so kind to me, I'm going to tell you guys something I wasn't going to tell you, but I'm going to tell you because you guys have been so kind to me this today. Next week, we will be talking about the aura and auric colors, and then we will finish up with the 7 cosmic principles, part 1 and 2. But this is what I wasn't going to tell you. So do you guys know? I'm going to go ahead and tell you. So do you guys know the next series, what we're going to cover? We are going to be covering the Way of Zen. And I'm so excited. We're going to cover the Way of Zen, the book by Alan Watts. We're going to study Zen and Buddhism. And we're going to do a study that's going to take us all winter. And we're going to talk about liberation. Because if there's one thing I want for everyone in my chat is liberation. And I want all of you guys to be free of the crap that has been shoved down your throat your whole life. And one of the ways we can find clarity and assess our situation is through Zen Buddhism. And so we are going to be doing a long-form study of Alan's book, The Way of Zen. That book changed my life. It has had more impact on me than any book I have ever read. And the funny thing is, it's like 120, 150 pages. I mean, I wish I could write like that. Every single paragraph is like home run, home run. I mean, Alan Watts was an incredible author. And so we are going to be studying the waves, and I'm going to use this photo here as one of my main photos for the series. And I'm really excited. I love you guys so much. I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible. I'm already pulling things together for it, so I'm real excited. I'll leave you guys with this awesome Led Zeppelin music, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Nobody's fault but mine. Nobody's for mine. Nobody's for mine. Monkey on my back, monkey on my back, 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 back. Gotta drink my wavy line. face is cracked from smiling, all the fears that she's been hiding. And it seems that pretty soon everybody's gonna know.